Good morning, everyone. I know it's 2 minutes early, but we have a very long agenda. I'm Denise Smiler, Chair of the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. And before we begin, I'd like to ask, since consistent with the board's policy, that everyone in the room please wear your mask unless you are presenting, at which time it can be removed. Thank you all for your cooperation. As I said, we have a very busy meeting today, but before we begin, I would like to welcome our newest board member, Sarah Manzano Diaz. Sarah has been appointed by Governor Wolf to complete the term of Commissioner Knodel, who resigned from the board effective October 29th. For those of you who may not be aware, Sarah brings with her a broad array of experience working throughout the years as an attorney in a variety of high-ranking positions in both the state and federal government. Given all of her experience, I am quite sure that Sarah, and the knowledge and perspective, I'm quite sure that she will prove to be a great asset to this board. So welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Denise. I appreciate it.
Okay, a quorum of the board members being present, I'd like to call today's meeting to order, and exactly 10 o'clock. For the record, I would note that in addition to the 7 board members, we also have representing our ex officio members, George Augusto, representing Russell Rudding, Secretary for the Department of Agriculture, Christine Heidingsfelder, representing Daniel Hassel, Secretary for the Department of Revenue, and Jennifer Langen, representing Stacy Garrity, State Treasurer. Thank you all for joining us. As the first order of business, I'd ask that everyone please stand and join me for a recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. By way of announcements, the board held an executive session yesterday, Tuesday, November 9th, to discuss personnel matters, ongoing litigation, and to conduct quasi-judicial deliberations relating to matters coming before the board. Today we have 4 public hearings and an informational presentation. Suffice it to say, it's going to be a fairly long meeting. Thus, it is the board's intention to initially hold these hearings and presentation, which should take us to about lunchtime. We will then break for about 30 minutes before returning to continue with the remainder of the agenda. The first of today's hearings pertain to Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment, Inc.'s petition for authority to conduct sports wagering at the Parks Race and Sportsbook in Malvern. Before we begin, I would ask that all non-attorneys who will be presenting evidence today in this proceeding be sworn in by the court reporter.
Joe and Matt.
So I was going to say, you have no non-attorney witnesses? All right.
If you have your right hands raised, you solemnly swear that the testimony you give will be the truth.
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. I would ask that everyone who is going to speak to please state and spell your name for the court reporter prior to your presentation. So, petitioners, you may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Commissioners. May it please the Board. My name is Mark Stewart, S-T-E-W-A-R-T, with the law firm of Eckert Siemens, appearing today on behalf of Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment. It is indeed a pleasure and an honor to be back in person and in front of you to be able to attend this hearing. With me to my immediate right is Brian Schroeder, S-C-H-R-O-E-D-E-R, Vice President, Regulatory Affairs and Chief Compliance Officer for Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment. To his right is Joe Wilson, W-I-L-S-O-N, Chief Operating Officer for Racing Operations at Parks Racing. And to his right is Matthew Cullen, C-U-L-L-E-N, Senior Vice President of Interactive Gaming and Sports for Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment. As the chair mentioned, we are here today on a petition seeking your approval to conduct sports wagering at the newly designated Parks Race and Sportsbook in Malvern. We're excited about the proposal in the new location. I know that we have a full agenda, so we'll get right to it. That's just the agenda of our presentation. As the board is aware, Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment is a Category 1 slot licensee, also holds a sports wagering certificate, and its affiliates, Bensalem Racing Association and Keystone Turf Club, hold thoroughbred horse racing licenses issued by the State Horse Racing Commission. Those affiliates have been approved by the Commission to operate 6 non-primary locations or off-track betting establishments. And currently there is 1 non-primary location that is active. It is the South Philadelphia Race and Sportsbook. Previously, this board had approved a second location at the Oaks Race and Sportsbook in Oaks, Pennsylvania, and Parks operated there for approximately 12 months until June of 2020, when the facility was permanently closed, in part due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and in part from what you'll hear today from our witnesses, because the model for OTBs is somewhat outdated in terms of the size and the structure and the operations, and really needs to be modernized. Parks has received approval from the State Horse Racing Commission to relocate the Oaks non-primary location to a to-be-constructed Chickies and Pete's in Malvern, Pennsylvania. Technically, it's in East Whiteland Township, but a Malvern address. And we believe that the collaboration with Chickies and Pete's will reinvigorate off-track betting and will also enhance the retail sports wagering operation at the location. During our proceedings before the Racing Commission, the Commission received no public comment, no negative comment certainly, and we received the unanimous approval of the Commission. With that, I will hand the presentation over to Joe Wilson. Joe?
Thanks, Mark. As Mark said, the current OTB model is outdated. There were once 23 OTBs in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Today, there are only 3. As we permanently closed Oaks, obviously, during the pandemic, but it was a 26,000 square foot facility with basically nobody in it. And you just can't operate that way. And all of the OTBs that have closed was mainly for the same reason. It's outdated. So that's why we started talking to Chickies and Pete's several years ago about this. And it's finally coming to fruition. And a big part of that is the fact that we could do sports betting there. And it's a great opportunity. It's what we see as the future of the model for both horse racing wagering and sports betting. So, with that, Pete's a big promoter of himself. I don't know if everybody's familiar with him out this way, but he's got 40 locations, multiple states. He's a self-promoter. He does a really good job of advertising and marketing, and we will work with him, especially around big events. If you're talking about racing, you're talking about the Triple Crown, you're talking about the Breeders' Cup, our own Pennsylvania Derby. So we are looking forward to that, and we also have the opportunity for that OTB, and it has sports that will be promoting to the database of Parks Casino, which is over 250,000 people. So that's where we're at. And I'll turn it over to Matt to talk about just the layout.
Thanks, Joe. I'll draw your attention to the next slide. Unfortunately, these aren't numbered, which is a schematic drawing of the actual project overview as a whole, inclusive of the restaurant and the self-contained sports book, which is that green area to the bottom left. You can see the entrance to the Chickies and Pete's establishment, as well as the orange area top left, which is the back of house and kitchen at the restaurant itself. On the next slide, it's a bit of a deeper dive into the sportsbook area itself. It's 630 roughly square feet. We're going to have 4 self-service kiosks in the facility, as well as 4 teller windows. And the area is completely separated from the restaurant with its own entrance, along with security. The next slide is just a rendering of the outside of the restaurant itself. And if you look at the following slide, photo number 1, you can actually see what the establishment looks like. It's a little bit further along than when this picture was taken roughly about a month ago. And then the next several slides are actual renderings of what the sports book will look like. This first concept rendering is looking from the restaurant into the partition. You can see the entrance there on the left and the counter area behind that partition. And then the following concept rendering is actually from inside the sports book, which shows the 4 OTC terminal areas. And the next slide is just a snapshot of the current build out, which is a little bit further along than when these pictures were taken again about a month ago. We've had some great success with our OTB race and sportsbook facilities. I would say that probably the most prominent one is that we would draw your attention to is our South Philly location amongst the stadiums and where the teams play in Philadelphia and South Philly. We generated over $22 million in retail sports handle out of that facility, which equated to about $2.8 million in gross retail sports wagering revenue, and generated $1 million in taxable revenue to the Commonwealth. Brian, are you going to take it from here?
Sure. The next couple slides highlight certain operational items for Malvern. Most importantly, there's no outside entrance to the sports book. You must enter Chicky and Pete's, walk through the restaurant to gain access to the sports book. The sports book and race book will be, the entrance will be monitored by a security guard for the entire time it is opened. The space will be non-smoking. And as you'll see in the next slide, we're looking at about 14 to 16 full and part-time employees. It's probably a little bit larger than that. 5 sports wagering tellers, 5 racing tellers, and then 5 security officers, in addition to some managers that will be working there to oversee the operation. In regards to surveillance, as we've operated in the past, both in South Philly and at Oaks, the surveillance feed from this location with all the cameras will go to Parks Casino in Ben Salem, and there will be communication between the management at Malvern, the surveillance department at Parks Casino, and they will communicate with PSP and PGCB casino compliance. And so far, since we've been operating South Philly as well as Oaks, there's been no problem with that communication between these entities. We've had success with that. Finally, in regards to unattended juveniles who can be left in vehicles, we have 4 cameras on the building covering the parking lot. In addition, we have signage that will be at the entrance of the sportsbook, at the entrance to the building itself, the restaurant itself, as well as signs on the lamppost outside in the parking lot to alert everyone to the situation. Those cameras are pan, tilt, and zoom, so they can cover the entire parking lot. And then, Mark, I think you're...
If I can, how about at the table?
At the...
At a table. So if a parent comes in with their child and goes to bet, they're going to leave the kid at the table?
So inside, so there's surveillance is inside the sports race book. I believe there is some surveillance that's Chicky and Pete's in its
Okay,
restaurant
but how are you
space.
going to, I've been saying this for 5 years, how are you going to combat a parent, a guardian, or whoever leaving their child at the table to go in and place a wager?
So the person sitting in the restaurant leaves to go place a wager,
Yes.
leaving their child at the table.
Correct.
So at that point, we've discussed having our security officer ask that person entering the building, the sports book, if you have a child here, and ask that question to see how they respond to it, and if they say yes, then say, we're not taking your wager. There's nothing, we can't really, I'm not sure there's a mechanism to track every table in the restaurant unless we have some type of staffing, security in the restaurant, which is not our space. So that's that's why we had the proposal of asking the question of the person entering by our security officer at the sports wagering area entrance space.
And to be clear,
Not sure I'm comfortable with that answer, but we can move ahead.
thank you. And just to be clear, I think it was noted, I realize this doesn't fully address your concern, Commissioner, but the sports book area is not designed to stay there. There's no seating in it. It's not a lounge, so to speak, which I realize doesn't fully address your concern, but
You have a question? Commissioner Derby has a question as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are there what's about with food and beverage inside the sports book?
no, there will not be service.
No service.
The idea is that the service is at the tables, and they would go in, place the wager, go back to the
Back to
table
the
where the...
restaurant.
Yep. There's no food or beverage service.
You may consider working with Pete and maybe having signage on the dining room tables, just a small sign that would indicate if you're going into place a bet, you cannot leave your children here.
We can expand the signage from just the entranceway to each table, absolutely.
It's a great idea. Thank you, Chair.
I'm sorry, my other commissioner has a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, let me take this off. Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I know at some of the other facilities, racetracks I've been to, I'm having dinner prior to being on the board, and they had a person in the restaurant with a mobile device that you could place a bet, whether it's on a track or a race, or I don't know if you could do sports. We probably didn't have sports betting at that point. Is anything like that enabled here, or because the restaurant's not a licensed area, it would be prohibited? I'm just trying to address.
It's really not necessary the way this is laid out and the way things are today. So you have the book is right there. So you
Trying to address Commissioner Logan's situation. That's all.
Understand. But there are other ways. I mean, if you have an app on your phone, you're also sitting there. You don't have to leave your table.
Thank you.
Right. No, Commissioner, patrons can absolutely place bets on their phone from their table with Parks or, frankly, any other, operator over the internet.
You can proceed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We were pretty much ready to wrap up. Just touch upon the anticipated launch and benefits. As Matt noted, the pictures were about a month old. We're much farther along. They're trying to finish the restaurant portion. We're hopeful that we will definitely open, with your permission, by the end of the year, and potentially even as early as early to mid-December. It was noted that there'll be 14 to 16 full and part-time jobs. I think that's around 70% full-time jobs that are expected there. We believe that the operation annually will generate in excess of $1.4 million in operating expenses and economic activity. And it will serve as a new source of recurring tax revenue for the Commonwealth, with nearly $1 million in racing and sports betting tax revenue and purse contributions expected. So, it was mentioned, we think that this is going to reinvigorate the OTB model. It's a way to promote racing, which is also one of the charges of the Category 1 slot licensees, and we anticipate nearly 30,000 visitors to the site a year. And with that, we're happy to answer any further questions of the board or of the Office of Enforcement Counsel. Thank you.
Thank you. Cyrus, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, James Armstrong for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. I have a few questions for, I'm not sure who wants to answer them, but can I draw your attention to the slide, regulatory status? In the 5th paragraph of it, it states the previous off-track betting facility, Oaks Race and Sportsbook, was permanently closed after 12 months of operation. Because of the pandemic and because of Oaks Race and Sportsbook model for off-track betting became outdated. The board only just approved the OTB facility on March 6th of 2019 under the original name of Valley Forge Turf Club and the renamed Oaks Race and Sportsbook. Could you explain how the board approved Oaks Race and Sportsbook model for off-track betting and sports betting became outdated in such a short period of time?
Yeah, I can take that. So basically, we were watching OTBs close throughout the Commonwealth. We were down to basically 3 OTBs at the time we thought about this and wanted to pursue this. And we believed that by adding sports wagering, it would give it a big bump in business. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. Part of that was that we were right down the road from Valley Forge Casino. So really, for that, we did not get the number of sports wagering customers that we thought that we were going to get. And again, as I said, it was a 26,000 square foot building, and you just can't, you can't operate like that. You just can't, you just lose money.
Can you give the board any assurances today that Parks Race and Sportsbook at Malvern model, that model, won't become outdated in 12 months?
I mean, I hope it doesn't.
So do I.
Again, this is a very scaled back operation as far as expenses and labor and everything else. So, you would not require as much, basically, handle, if you will, on both sports and racing.
Okay. I think it's fair to say that the Greenwood Gaming is investing significant capital in the model. It's pursuing other locations as well. It believes that the synergies between the two patrons and the two operations will produce a viable product, and it's put its money where its mouth is. So it's certainly hopeful and I would say confident that it will be a success.
Okay. Can I draw your attention to the slide, planned collaboration? Has Chicky and Pete's collaborated with any other off-track betting facilities in any other gaming jurisdictions?
Yes. So we initially, we have a New Jersey OTB that was connected with our Atlantic City racetrack that we own. And we we relocated the OTB in Vineland, New Jersey, which again was a 14,000 square foot facility, was losing money. And we relocated inside of the Chickies and Pete's in Egg Harbor Township on the Black Horse Pike. And that was 3 years ago. And we are still doing quite well there. So yes, we have. The only difference is that facility does not have sports wagering because it's not allowed in New Jersey. Whereas this facility will have both racing and sports wagering.
Assuming we're approved.
Can I draw your attention to slide 8, the revitalized off-track betting OTB model? Isn't Parks, the South Philadelphia Race and Sportsbook, a traditional OTB model?
Yep.
It is.
Okay. Isn't it located in the Stadium District of Philadelphia specifically to attract Philadelphia sports fans?
It is.
Okay. Now, how is the South Philadelphia Race and Sportsbook model different than the Parks Race and Sportsbook at Malvern model?
Well, again, you pointed out location is one thing, and that's a very good part of the city to have basically sports wagering and horse race wagering. We were also looking to. We are looking to move that because again, that facility is 39,000 square feet. It's just too big. It's not what the market demands today.
We have a proposed move to Chicky and Pete's in South Philadelphia that's pending appeal for zoning appeal. So again, that would, we recognize that that's the same older model, and we want to transition it to the newer model, and right now it's in appeal, the zoning appeal.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Can I draw your attention to slide 9, Parks Race and Sportsbook at Malvern project overview? I just want to clear things up. Is there no outside entrance to the Parks Race and Sportsbook at Malvern facility? So all the customers must walk through Chickies and Pete's in order to get to the facility?
That's correct.
And are the restrooms intentionally located next to the Parks and Parks Race and Sports Book at Malvern as a way to design the Chicken Pete's customers have to come over to the race book in order to use the facilities?
I don't think so, no.
Not to our knowledge.
My knowledge.
It wasn't designed deliberately like that?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Can I draw your attention to slide 18, staffing and operations at the operations plan for Malvern? What are the planned operations, hours of operation for the Parks Race and Sports Book at Malvern?
The planned hours of operation are to coincide and actually be a little less than the hours of operation of Chickies and Pete's. So each day, Chickies and Pete's opens at 11 a.m. So the Race and Sports Book would open at 11 a.m. Monday through Thursday, the Race and Sports Book would close at 10 p.m. And on Friday through Sunday, it would close, I believe, at 12 a.m. Chickies and Pete's remains open pursuant to the normal, typical LCB hours of up to 2 a.m.
Now, there will be 5 security officers on duty at the
No, there's
Facebook?
one security officer on duty, 5 officers will be hired to fill that role during the course of the hours of operation.
Okay, so there will only be 1 security officer on duty at any time?
Yes.
Correct. If you look at the plans, you can see that the spaces, there's only 1 entrance point. The spaces, the public space is not quite small, but it's not a large facility, and 1 security person can easily cover that area.
I'm sorry if I can interrupt. So 1 security person at the podium.
Yes.
Yes.
Who's monitoring the cameras that you told me were outside in the parking lot?
The surveillance department at Parks Casino.
Okay.
Will the security officer at the podium have any responsibilities in regard to perhaps patrolling the parking lot at all, going out there?
No, the security officer's obligations are to stay at the security podium and ensure no one under the age of 21 or self-excluded enter the location.
Now, these new security officers that will be assigned there, will they be coming from the security office department at Parks, or are they going to be new hires?
Are they
Be a combination of both.
from the security part of Parks? Or
Not necessarily
It would
Parks,
be new hires and rehires from other OTB operations
Yes.
for Oaks or people that were laid off from South Philadelphia.
Now, can I draw your attention to the slide, staffing and operations plan that Malvern continued? Just so we're clear, there will be no surveillance officer or surveillance office on site, correct?
That is correct, and that's how we operate South Philadelphia today.
All surveillance will be conducted through the surveillance department at Parks, correct?
Correct.
Will there be a surveillance station and surveillance officer at Parks dedicated specifically to the Parks Race and Sports Book at Malvern?
There's not. There's a minimum staffing plan at Parks Casino for surveillance, and there are, I believe it is 6 operators and 1 manager, and those 6, depending on the shift, are assigned different things. There's not 1 person assigned to just watch the cameras for South Philly or watch the cameras for Malvern. Just like there's not 1 surveillance officer assigned to watch a table game at the casino. It's a constant revolving kind of new set of eyes. But they'll be part of the job of all 6 operators.
So will the bank of screens for the sports book just be right there along with the other screens for the whole
large wall
Parks
with
Casino?
Yes.
What's the current surveillance status for the South Philadelphia sports book?
The same. It would be the same as we're proposing here, which is the cameras are monitored by the Parks Casino surveillance team, and any issues are communicated between the management of South Philadelphia and the surveillance department at the casino, at which point if there's any issue, the surveillance department would notify PSP, as well as the on-site manager, and then they would notify the gaming control board. and that's in the internal controls that have been approved by, there's a separate set of internal controls and operating procedures for South Philly for sports wagering, and they've been approved by the board, and they're about 35 or 40 pages that include surveillance, security, and we have one pending for Malvern. We haven't submitted, it's pending review and approval.
Are there any plans in the works in the security and/or surveillance departments on addressing, or better yet, preventing underage gaming and intoxicated patrons from gaming?
So we have the security officer sitting at the security podium to check identifications for anyone that appears to be under the age of 30 or any one that appears to be on the self-excluded list. In addition, when he's doing that check, he's seeing if the person's showing any signs of visible intoxication. As security officers, they are trained in RAMP for any type of visible signs of intoxication, so they have a certification on that, so they would stop that person from entering the facility.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board at this point?
I just have.
Wait. Okay, Commissioner.
I just have one. I don't mean to harp on the underage surveillance, but kind of to the point of Commissioner Mustio here. I know right now at restaurants they have like the QR codes where you have to scan to bring the menus up. Is there any opportunity for like the patrons that are eating to also have some type of code on the table that they're able to place their bet in the sports book so they won't have to get up? I would think that patrons that are coming in that are not looking to eat and just place a bet will just go directly there. But for the patrons that are sitting at the table, it just might be a good recommendation to just have a QR code on the other side if Chicky and Pete's permits for individuals to be able to scan and tie directly to the sports book.
There is a way to do that. It would be account-based, so you'd have an app on your phone, be through Parks or through any other operator in the Commonwealth. Unfortunately, the restaurant isn't gaming floor, so a patron can't legally place a retail bet from sitting in the restaurant. They would have to physically get up and walk into the sportsbook area itself.
But there could be a QR code for the account on the phone.
account, to open an account.
And
But you could certainly open an account on an app.
And there is, I think, plans for cross-marketing and advertising so that they can open an account online.
And you can do that on both sports and racing as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you.
Jennifer?
I'll just go back to security for a second. Everything that Greenwood has is totally in like security offerings.
Seems like it'd be easy
so
to do.
the same technology as far as scanning of licenses and making sure that someone's not self-excluded, you're going to have at this OTB, correct?
I believe the ID scanning will be there as well, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Enforcement Council, do you have a presentation?
Yes, we do. We're going to make a statement and recommendation.
Proceed.
Chair, Commissioners, the Office of Enforcement Council, along with the Bureaus of Casino Compliance, Gaming Operations, Investigations and Enforcement, Gaming Laboratory Operations, and the Bureau of Licensing, along with the Offices of Diversity, Sports Wagering Operations, and the Office of Compulsive and Problem Gambling, have reviewed and consulted extensively on the petition and appendices filed by Greenwood Gaming Entertainment, Inc. for the authority to conduct sports wagering at the new off-track betting facility, Parks Race and Sportsbook at Malvern. After which, the Office of Enforcement Council filed an answer in this matter requesting that the board order the implementation of certain listed conditions if it was so inclined to grant the relief requested in the petition. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Council has no objection to the approval of Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment Inc.'s petition to conduct sports wagering at the Parks Race and Sportsbook at Malvern. However, we request that the approval to conduct sports wagering at the Parks Race and Sportsbook at Malvern be subject to the proposed conditions outlined in the Office of Enforcement Council's answer filed on August 31st, and subject to the Office of Enforcement Council's reply to Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment Inc.'s answer to new matter filed on September 22nd, as well as any additional conditions imposed by the board. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Petitioners, do you have any questions for Enforcement Council?
We do not, and we were in agreement with the conditions that were proposed as reflected in the answer to the response to new matter that that we had filed.
Any questions or comments for Enforcement Counsel from the board?
Just one question. Cyrus, or Madam Chair, is this a qualified majority vote? Steve?
I believe it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Madam Chair, one housekeeping matter. May we
Yes.
please move our presentation into the record?
Any objection?
No objection.
Thank you.
So done. So that concludes this proceeding. We will undertake deliberations during the Chief Counsel's agenda part of the meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The second public hearing pertains to Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association LLC's petition for approval to conduct table games and issuance of a table games operation certificate for Hollywood Casino Morgantown. Once again, I would ask that all non-attorneys who will be presenting evidence today in this proceeding be sworn in by the court reporter. Dan.
Right, you have your right hands raised. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
Thank you. I would also ask everyone who's going to speak to, again, please state your and spell your name for the court reporter prior to your presentation. Mr. King, you may proceed.
Good morning, Chair Smiler and members of the board. On behalf of, and I guess I should announce myself for the record, Adrian King, law firm of Ballard Spahr, here on behalf of Penn National Gaming and the Penn National entities that are presenting the following three presentations. First of all, I just want to echo my colleague, Mr. Stewart. I'm very pleased to be here before you. It's really hard to believe that we haven't been here for a public meeting. I know you had one before, but in 2 years since I've been in front of the board, and it's really mind-boggling. But it's a great pleasure to be here. We also, on behalf of Penn National, I know we're very appreciative of all the efforts you've put in to allow us to present 3 petitions today, which is quite a caseload, and the staff has done a great job, and we couldn't be more appreciative of all the hard work they've also done to help us. This is a great day for Penn National and the Commonwealth, and why do I say that? The 3 petitions that are going to be presented to you today, and I think this is really remarkable, they represent over $133 million of investment in the Commonwealth in terms of the new brick-and-mortar casino in Morgantown, which we're going to talk about first with the table games certificate, and with respect to the slot reduction petitions that will follow in terms of the investments in the properties that are being made in connection with those. And that's already on top of the $120 million that was invested with respect to Hollywood Casino York. So what you're looking at here today is the culmination as we roll into the end of 2021 of $250 million of investment in Pennsylvania casinos. And further, I think it's very important to note that we're looking also at the creation of 700 jobs, and those are, good positions, well-paid, benefits, et cetera. And so this is really a good day for everyone. So we're going to get right into the first petition, which will be the table game certificate for Hollywood Casino Morgantown. But before we get into that, I wanted to introduce Erin Chamberlain, who is to my right. And Erin is the Senior Vice President for the company in charge of regional operations, and she has in her portfolio Pennsylvania. And then, of course, Dan Im, who is the Vice President General Manager of the mothership for this property, so to speak, Hollywood Casino in Grantville, and also Mark Costello, who you've seen because Mark's been working very, very hard on Hollywood Casino Morgantown and will be the Vice President General Manager there. So before Dan and Mark get into it, Erin just wanted to say a few words as well.
Thank you, Adrian. Erin Chamberlain, Chamberlin, on behalf of Penn National Gaming. Madam Chair, board members, it's a pleasure to be here in person presenting these great projects on behalf of Penn National Gaming. We're really excited to continue our investment in the Commonwealth and look forward to a great discussion from my colleagues Dan and Mark. So thank you very much for having us this morning.
You're going to go. Thank you. Thank you, Erin. Thank you very much, Adrian. Madam Chair, members of the board, again, as Adrian and Erin both mentioned, it's a pleasure to be here today to present this to you. Thank you for everything as well. In regards to Hollywood Casino Morgantown, very, very excited to have this casino get live very soon and join the casinos within the Commonwealth. So again, thank you. And my name is Mark Guastella, Guastella, Guastella. So with that being said, we'll go into our presentation, and what I'll be doing today is just really going through a few members of our leadership team and giving an update as to where we are with the status of the property, which is coming fast and furious for us, and very exciting to say the very least. So firstly, I just want to introduce our leadership team. Obviously, me on the top, our various team members as well. This is our senior leadership team that will be opening the property. We have Matthew Woodall, who is our Director of Operations, Janet Shinsky, our Director of Marketing, and Amanda Ladner, who is our Director of Human Resources. All of these particular leaders are on the ground right now working very hard to get our property open. So very excited to be working with them. Moving into the construction update, this is an aerial view of the site. A fantastic location right off the turnpike, the I-76. What you see in this diagram is Morgantown Road to the north side, which curves around, intersecting the turnpike. The exit on the turnpike, exit 298, which takes you right into the property. Again, a fantastic location, and looks really good for us. Moving on, these are some great shots. This was taken about a week ago. It's hard to believe if I took these shots this morning, there would already be some changes just because of the speed of construction at this point. But a few things to point out here. The top left, you can see the porte cochere entrance. You'll see the signage going up on the right-hand side there. That was the only sign at time of photograph, but the other signage is as we speak, it's going on at the property. The center image, it gives you a shot which looks to the southeast. On the left-hand side of the picture, you will see the porte cochere entrance. And then on the right-hand side, you will see the west entrance as well, having two entry points into the property. Obviously, our surface parking there, that is our west surface area. And then to the left of the image will be our north surface area as you enter the site. On the bottom of the photograph, that is our gaming porch, and that is situated on the south side of the property, adjacent to the I-76. A few other images of our casino floor just to show progress. Of course, once the carpet goes in and the finishing touches, everything starts coming to life. Really a beautiful design from the ceiling to the floor, very high ceilings, very open space. The top left and right, firstly on the left, we have our large video wall, which if you're looking from the west entrance down the proposed table games pit, that will be the focal point. So really interesting and exciting focal point of the casino. The top right-hand side shows our casino cage, and in relation to the bottom image, you'll see the screen, then the cage to the right, and one of our food and beverage outlets to the right-hand side. Just a few food and beverage outlets. We have our sports book, a couple of our grab-and-go venues. We'll also have an area which is our app activation space where guests will be able to interact with a lot of our team members regarding our loyalty program, et cetera, as well as our casino bar. Regarding table games operations specifically, just a brief overview. So Essentially, as I mentioned, from the west entrance down to the property, we'll have 2 end-to-end pits, which, they lead directly down to the other end of the property. And then in regards to the pits themselves, we'll have 3 pit areas, 2 along that main stretch, and then we'll have another one which features Asian-style games specifically. Regarding the number of games, we do have 28 traditional live dealer games as listed there. And then, of course, we also have 10 electronic wagering terminals, which feature blackjack, craps, mini-buck, and roulette. Moving over into staffing, which we've been working diligently on for several weeks now. As Adrian mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, opening the property is one thing, but giving the opportunity for team members to come on board and create jobs in the Commonwealth is truly special, and we're very excited to be already bringing on so many team members for this project and excited for them to have them start. Regarding table games specifically, a few points of note. Approximately 130 table games team members within that department. How we've actually been dealing with staffing, we've been running dealer school now since the end of September. We've been diligently doing that. That's actually been at the Holiday Inn Morgantown. We were very creative as to how we set that up, but it worked out very well. And we have multiple class schedules, very flexible, and the dealer school has been great with, a lot of team members coming in for the first time, learning how to deal cards, et cetera, and they're doing extremely well. A few things to note that we've done to really attract dealers to the property. Our sign-on bonuses, which we've been offering, and we also have for our team members, we have a raffle for a Harley-Davidson. After we open, we're going to be raffling that off for any of our team members that have come on board during this hiring process. So very exciting. And then also just to conclude from a job perspective, again, understanding, in our job market now, really doing everything we can to attract team members to the property. As you can see there, since September, we have been extremely active in the community in regards to job fairs, listed there several in September, October. Today we have another one, and we're just constantly interviewing, and as the team grows, we're meeting more people to come on board to the property. Also, several partnerships as listed there that we've done with RAC, Daniel Torrey Center, PA Career Link, as well as local vocational contracts. So reaching deep into the community to attract talent to our beautiful property. So with that being said, very excited for this, and thank you very much for hearing this presentation today.
Thank you. Enforcement Counsel, do you have any questions?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Ashley Gabriel, Gabrielle, for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. Can you please explain to the board what security and surveillance measures you will be taking with regard to the concerns of unattended minors being left in the parking lot?
Yes, so in the parking lot, we have several camera placements there that will be under surveillance with our surveillance department, which will be on property. We also have our security, which will be doing regular patrols of the parking spaces, both surface parkings, as I highlighted in the presentation. So that will be under regular patrol and surveillance, specifically in the parking lot.
So you will have a rover? A security
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Yes.
And taking a look at slide 4.
Oh, slide 4. Let me go to slide 4. Sorry. Is it this one? Oh, this one. Yes.
The space that you have designated as the gaming porch.
Yes.
There on the bottom.
Yes.
What activities will take place on that gaming porch?
That will be initially slot operations. We have approximately 160 slot machines in that porch.
Where is that in location? So with regard to the rest of the gaming floor, I'm not sure if this is in a slide or not. In the building, is that adjacent?
So if you look at this aerial view, it's on the south end.
I'm sorry?
So if you look at this view, the first one where the turnpike is, that rectangular porch is adjacent and runs parallel to the turnpike.
Okay.
And there is access from the gaming floor to that. There's a vestibule between the two areas.
Okay, and what portions of the property will be designated smoking and non-smoking?
Right now, we're still evaluating that, evaluating the floor as we look at our slot layout, and we should have that established soon, but yet to be established fully.
Excuse me, is that gaming porch, a gaming porch, is that intended to be a smoking area?
Guests would be allowed to smoke in that space, yes.
Okay, so that's going to be completely smoking?
That will be a smoking area, yes. As far as a total, we haven't established as it relates to the whole property where smoking will be.
Okay,
But
and there will be natural airflow?
yes, there will be.
Okay,
correct.
all right. We have no further questions.
Any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question about when you said there's going to be regular patrols in the parking lot?
Yes.
What does regular mean? I mean, is it every 20 minutes, every half hour, every hour?
We are going to be establishing that, obviously dependent on volume in the parking area, but it will be around the clock. So there will be a rover designated to that parking space. The exact hours we're still working through as we open the property. But of course, from our security and our surveillance department, we are going to be laser focused in ensuring that it is closely monitored as we do at our other properties within Penn in the Commonwealth.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Mustillo?
Just one out of curiosity. Was that porch part of the original design? It looks like it's a add-on here.
Yeah, there's been some reimagining of the property over the last 18 months. That porch was within the last year that was finalized. So it's really part of the gaming floor. So, but there have been a couple of iterations on that south side of the property.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Logan?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed, are there cameras out in the parking lot?
Yes, there are.
Can you just explain? I'm sorry, I was taking some notes and I...
Yes, there are several cameras, all under constant surveillance within our surveillance department on property.
Thank you. I have just a question. Are you having any difficulty recruiting staff? And where are these job fairs being held?
So we are holding all of our job fairs at the Holiday in Morgantown, which is right across the turnpike. You know, it's staffing, the environment, there are challenges, of course. That's why, as I mentioned, we've got ahead of the game on that, you know, particularly with positions such as dealers, security officers, et cetera, really key positions for us. We feel that we're in a very good place now and confident about this, but in order to get to that place, we really had to start early with our recruiting efforts, and we feel very good about that.
Thank you. Enforcement Counsel, do you have a presentation?
Thank you, Chair. We do not have a presentation, but I would like to make a statement in support of our position.
Proceed.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has reviewed the table games petition filed by Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC, for its Category 4 facility known as Hollywood Casino Morgantown and supporting documentation. We have discussed the contents of the petition and requested relief with the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement, Bureau of Licensing, Bureau of Gaming Laboratory Operations, Bureau of Casino Compliance, Office of Diversity, Office of Compulsive and Problem Gambling, Office of Sports Wagering Operations, and the Bureau of Gaming Operations. Each bureau agrees that Mountain View has met its burden with regard to its corresponding area of expertise. After reviewing the petition and requested relief and analyzing the submission comparatively with the requirements of the Pennsylvania Racehorse Development and Gaming Act and the board's regulations promulgated thereunder, the Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to Mountain View's request for a table game operation certificate and to conduct table games at its Morgantown facility, subject to the conditions listed in our answer to the petition. The Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board consider those listed conditions when making its decision regarding Mountain View's petition.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the petitioner with regard to Enforcement Counsel's position?
No questions to Enforcement Counsel, just three quick housekeeping issues. Number one, all the members of the board and staff are cordially invited.
Sorry, Mr. King, before
Yes, ma'am.
Before you proceed, Does the board have any questions or comments for Enforcement Counsel? Okay, hearing none, you may proceed.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Just number one, we cordially invite the members of the board and any staff members who want to attend. We're going to try to schedule an open house, I think, after the board meeting on the 15th. Again, this is a brand new construction facility, and again, it's a really great development for the company and the Commonwealth, so we'd love to show it off to you before it opens. Secondly, I'd like to move the PowerPoint into evidence as part of our presentation.
No objection.
And of course, I always think it's a good thing to do, which is to respectfully request your approval of our petition when you take a vote. So thank you.
Well, thank you. It was an excellent presentation. It's nice to see how far along the Morgantown has come, because I passed it for the last year.
Very exciting. Yeah, no, very exciting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. That concludes this proceeding. We're going to move to the third public hearing. The third public hearing scheduled before the board today pertains to Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association LLC's petition to modify the gaming floor at the Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse. Since I suspect that some of the fact witnesses in this case have already been sworn and have identified themselves in the prior hearing, I would just remind those witnesses that they remain under oath. If there are any new non-attorney witnesses, I would ask them to stand and be sworn in at this time, as well as identify themselves for the record.
So you have your right hand raised. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay. Thank you. Okay, petitioners, you may proceed.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I am Michael Fabius from the law firm Ballard Spahr, switching off with my colleague Adrian King. With me, as you know, Dan Eim, Aaron Chamberlain, and joining us at the desk is Mike Mueller, Vice President of Casino Operations. I've provided the court reporter with the spelling of names, so she has that. Before I turn the presentation over to Dan and to Mike, I wanted to first thank the board staff, and in particular the Financial Investigations Unit, for their work reviewing this petition and the petition that will follow, and the abundant slot performance data from the post-COVID and the pre-COVID period that was necessary for the submission and presentation of this petition. I'll note quickly two key conclusions from that review of the slot performance data. The first is that there is and will remain sufficient supply of slot machines to satisfy patron demand after implementing the gaming floor modification. And the second is that the proposed reduction in slots is not anticipated to negatively impact either gaming revenues or gaming taxes. We stand here excited to invest in retail and online gaming in the Commonwealth, and we're very excited for the revenue potential of all the forms of permitted gaming in the Commonwealth. And with that, I want to turn it over to Dan and to Mike to talk specifically about the gaming floor plan modification and the exciting investments that they have here first at Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse.
Good morning. Madam Chair, members of the board, appreciate being able to be up here to speak to you today about this petition. A brief look at the first slide. Looking at a history of the gross terminal revenues at PNRC shows that our GTR peaked in 2010 at $253 million. After that, the GTR showed a steady decline as more options were introduced into the market. This was followed by a significant decline in 2020 due to COVID, but 2020 also presented additional impact of iGaming as its revenues grew from $21 million in 2019 to $378 million in 2020. Taking you through this next slide, the top line of this chart shows our proposed reduction of slots at PNRC from our current count of 1927 to our proposed count of 1,736. You'll also see that tables are not affected in this petition. During COVID, PNRC offered an average of 1,174 slots Our request will provide us 48% or 560 more slot machines than we offered during the COVID restrictions. Below, looking at the average occupancy chart, this shows that our pre-COVID weekend peaks were about 33%, and that's in the red number. And you also see, and that was on 1,174 machines. You also see in the blue and yellow that our weekend and our weekday and overall occupancies remained relatively unchanged. During our pre-COVID window, the busiest night with our highest occupancy that we saw was 78%. And on 1,953 machines, that represented about 1,500 games in play. If you apply that same 78% occupancy against our new number of slots during the reduction, we will still have over 400 machines for our guests to play. The chart at the bottom right shows GTR from March through May of 2021. Those 3 months, we averaged a little over 16 million in GTR, and that was just on 1,286 games. In June, when the supply rose to 1,927 games, it actually fell, the GTR actually fell to 14 million a month. It may sound slightly counterintuitive, but this does show that more machines do not necessarily equate to more revenue. What we feel will work best at PNRC is to provide the right number of slots with the right games that people want to play, with a layout that is comfortable for our guests to play in, and that's exactly what we'd like to propose with this petition. This is our current floor plan. With this floor plan, this represents 33% of the floor being smoking, and 44% of the games fall into that smoking area. With our proposed plan, you can see highlighted a little bit better, the smoking is in the yellow. That still represents 33% of the gaming floor, but now 48% of the slot machines fall into this area. And with that, I will pass this to Dan. Thank you.
You can.
No.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. It really feels, as everybody said, it feels great to see everybody again. I think the last time that we saw each other was at the York opening. So I wanted to just touch briefly on this slide here. This slide represents our partner, HBPA, and their support for today's petition that we have here in front of you. This letter is from their executive director, and we've had numerous conversations with the HBPA, just describing kind of what our vision is and how we're looking at this slot floor reduction petition. So we are in alignment. The next couple slides I want to talk to you about is really what Adrian pointed to during the Morgantown presentation, just Penn National's commitment to the Commonwealth. And, you know, we talked a little bit, and I think some of the commission has actually seen the cashless gaming, the innovation at the York property. So Penn National continues our commitment with innovation, technology, and infrastructure in the Commonwealth, and we do that to be very highly competitive within the marketplace. So when we look at the reinvestment in innovation and technology, I'm just going to touch on it briefly, as like I said, most of you have seen this technology in play. But this is just our cashless technology. It's a way to have our players have the opportunity to play cashless on our gaming floor. And also, they do this through their My Choice app. Once you get the My Choice app, which is our player loyalty program, you can actually download a wallet, which is very similar to what you'd see in iCasino environment or mobile sports wagering. But you download that wallet with funds, whether it's through the cage or through credit or debit. And you now have your funds on your phone. You use Bluetooth technology on the machines, slot machines, or table games, where you download from your wallet, so there's no cash going into the machines. Download from your wallet into the machine, and you play, or the table games. And when you are ready to cash out, you cash out right back to your wallet. So again, no cash is changing hands. This technology for both slots and tables we've had at both York and our Grantville facility. We also are going to be opening up with our new Morgantown site, and we've had it operating for about 2 years. I think it's been, obviously, it's a learning experience for a lot of our customers, and it's new technology and it's change. So over the last couple months, though, we're seeing adoption rates grow steadily, so we feel very excited about the new technology. And then the next slide is just talking about some of the infrastructure modifications within the Commonwealth. So we are adding a sports book. This sports book is going to be in the Grantville space where we had our Epic Buffet. Through the pandemic, we closed the buffet. And this is just a way to re-energize that space, create more excitement and energy, especially going after a kind of a younger demographic that we've seen throughout the pandemic. We've seen a younger demographic coming into the bricks and mortar casinos. So this is just really exciting for us. It's close to a $7 million investment. Grantville alone is going to be spending almost $8 to $9 million in investments. We're also, if this petition is approved, as Mike described, we're kind of creating more space, making the gaming space a very safe environment for our customers. But we're also going to be doing some slot floor, the configurations, as well as new carpet, new slot chairs, new bases. One last thing, I guess, in light of tomorrow being Veterans Day, we're also very proud that to create more energy and excitement to PNRC, we've partnered with Tattered Flag. They are opened in our second floor of our casino space. And for those of you that either know or do not know, they're very a tremendous restaurant within the central Pennsylvania. They are veterans owned and veterans operated. So we're very excited about that partnership with Tattered Flag. And again, we'll continue the investment. We've invested quite a bit, as Adrian mentioned, with the York and the Morgantown facility, and we continue that investment in Grantville, again, being very highly competitive and just making improvements within the Commonwealth. So with that, I think we're open to questions.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Enforcement Counsel if they have any questions or comments at this point, before I turn it over to the board.
Yes, John Crowe, C-R-O-H-E, Senior Enforcement Counsel for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. I do have a few follow-up questions. Firstly, in your professional opinion, is the proliferation of unregulated skill slot machines impacting Hollywood slot business?
I'm going to. I think that.
Whoever's best.
Yeah, I think that's my cue to turn it over to Adrian. So.
I'm going to answer this question for the company, and this answer will apply for both this petition and the second petition. And we have anticipated this question given some of the other petitions for slot reductions that have come from the other operators. So we wanted to give you a somewhat detailed response, but we'll do it as efficiently as we can. We understand, and through the question, you're interested in whether the proliferation of illegal, and I should say so-called legal skill games, is having an adverse impact on the Commonwealth's brick-and-mortar casinos and causing slot reductions. While there are a number of factors that impact slot count at a casino, including the lingering effects of the pandemic and the 2017 expansion legislation that authorized online and other gaming offerings, Penn National contends that skill machines have undoubtedly contributed to slot count reduction being necessary. So why do we say this? As defined in the Gaming Act, skill games are a type of slot machine. And I've handed up some handouts for you. One is an advertisement from a skill game distributor. And they very blatantly, this is very blatantly, offer their machine to establishments that did not qualify as truck stops. As we all know, a VGT is a form of a slot machine. It's just we use a different term for the purposes of the Act. So they themselves acknowledge these are slot machines. The widespread distribution of slot machines outside of casinos is known as distributed gaming. And as a result of the experience in Illinois, where widespread distributed gaming launched in 2012, it's well established that between 2013 and 2019, casino gross gaming revenue declined by nearly $200 million. And this in turn caused the Illinois casino gaming industry to shed almost 1,500 jobs, or 19% of its pre-distributed gaming workforce. Distributed gaming further caused casino valuations to deteriorate and capital investment and growth to materially diminish. And in one case, the value of an Illinois casino property fell by 33%, $180 million to $120 million over a 10-year period, 2011 to 2021. Now, logically speaking, this should come as no surprise. If slot machine patrons can play at the local bar, tavern, or convenience store and avoid a trip to the casino, they will. Of course, that comes at a serious and real price to the casino operators themselves, who've made vast investments in their properties, and to the Commonwealth, which is unable to collect its 52% tax rate on legal casino slot machine revenue. And in addition to the cannibalization of regulated and highly taxed casino gaming revenue, the proliferation of skill games across the Commonwealth has other adverse effects that have to be recognized. I promise I'm wrapping up quickly. First, unregulated skill games undermine and undo public confidence in the integrity of gaming. The public cannot be reasonably expected to make a distinction between licensed, regulated slot machines and their unregulated counterparts. And this is especially true when some skill game operators specifically attempt to position their machines against or in the vicinity of Pennsylvania lottery terminals and equipment, and or in other cases, utilize official sounding names, monikers on their equipment. Maybe the name Pennsylvania might be on the side of a machine. Second, there are no reasonable gaming or underage gaming limitations and protocols in place at the establishments where skill games are available. And this is a very real problem, as we have seen time and time again. Photos of children in close proximity to, and in some cases, actually playing skill game machines. I've handed up some photos to you that I think you might find quite shocking. Finally, as set forth in the summary of criminal activity that I've provided, which literally we spent 1 hour doing a Google search, skill games are creating a lasting and wholly unnecessary crime wave across the Commonwealth. And the simple fact is this: putting slot machine type devices like skill games and associated ticket redemption equipment filled with cash in unprotected spaces is not a smart idea. That is exactly why the Pennsylvania General Assembly, and I would say arguing very wise public policy choices, has on multiple occasions rejected the distributed gaming concept for the Commonwealth. Without question, the best and safest place for slot machine type devices to operate is in a highly regulated casino environment that maintains multiple layers of monitoring and security, including on-site state police presence, Gaming Control Board casino compliance personnel, our security agents, and extensive video surveillance. So that is our answer to that question.
Thank you. Are these skill games one of the direct causes of this specific request for a reduction?
Yes, it's one of the direct causes, yes.
Got it. Will there be any impact on the number of employees at the facility as a result of this reduction or the build out of the sports book?
Yes, no impact.
No impact, okay. What about a reduction in work hours of the current employees?
Yes, no reduction.
And I guess likewise, will there be any change in the percentage of full-time versus part-time employees?
No.
You mentioned in one of the slides that the creation of the sports book, that there was intended to make gameplay more safe for the patrons. Can you expand on that a little bit? You mentioned patron safety and I was just curious what you meant.
Oh, no, the reference to the safety of a floor is just through the pandemic, having the additional spacing on the gaming floor. With the petition, the reduction, we're able to realign our gaming machines to create more space in between aisles and just create a more safe environment for our customers.
Understood. And if approved, what is your anticipated timeline for completion?
The anticipated completion, would be in the next several months. However, the actual floor realignment will be into the first and second quarter of next year.
I have no further questions. Okay, we have no further questions at this time.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Dermody?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Adrian, I think it might be for you. I'm just curious. Many years ago, working as an ADA with the Allegheny County District Attorney's Office, we had some dealings with illegal poker machines. But what we found with the poker machines, at least in Allegheny County, almost every municipality in Allegheny County licensed jukeboxes, vending machines, and they would charge a monthly fee, $10, whatever it was, and then poker machines were $1,500, $2,000. So of course they knew they were paying, but yet they were getting these license fees. Do you know the skill games? Are local municipalities taxing them or licensing them?
I don't believe so. These are certainly, I think, generally recognized as gray machines. And I think mainly they're kept under wrap. In some places, we've seen them in different rooms in establishments. But also in some cases, we've seen outright, literally mini casinos that are being set up around the Commonwealth. And we had one actually in our backyard in a borough right outside of Reading, where they literally on the front door had a neon sign that said 777 Casino. We did bring that attention to District Attorney John Adams in Berks County, and they took appropriate action. But I understand the question, but I think these are kind of kept under wraps right now as much as they can.
Yeah,
I don't think local municipalities are taxing them.
Or go to licensing them in some way. But that became, at the time, a court case. It was a common pleas court case in Allegheny County that said that if you're licensing them, they're okay. You know, poker machines were legal. Are you kidding? And they're proliferating. These skill games are all over the place. Many casinos, absolutely. And kids are playing them.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Adrian.
Yes.
Commissioner Mustillo?
Don't go too far, Adrian. So the slots, and maybe revenue can chime in too, but the slots revenue helps reduce property taxes in Pennsylvania. So your one slide justifying the reduction was that the GTR wasn't going to change much, but I'm assuming GTR or the revenue from slots would be higher, is what you would be implying, if the skill games were not there.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, if we look at the basic construct of the Gaming Act, obviously the Commonwealth controls all gaming in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and it's made very specific decisions about how gaming tax revenue should be used. And then what you've done is you've partnered with operators such as Penn National to basically take that market and bring it in to the Commonwealth. And as I said, anytime a person is not going into a casino, playing a regulated machine in a casino, you're not getting your share of that revenue. And I think that's very clear, and we think that's happening.
Yeah, just as an aside, I was driving the countryside in McDonald, Pennsylvania, and I saw a sign for a casino, and being on the gaming board, I wasn't aware that we had a casino in McDonald, Pennsylvania, so I went to it, and it's exactly as it's described, and the pictures are very similar.
And I think, you know, you need to understand that while some of this has certainly become homegrown, I mean, this is not new to Penn National. I mean, as you know, it operates in multiple jurisdictions. There are organized groups coming out of various states coming into Pennsylvania. A lot of them come from Georgia, for example. The one casino we talked about outside of Reading, these people it was a husband and wife team that set up their little casino from outside their house in Atlanta. These people they're carpetbaggers. They have no interest in the Commonwealth. They have no desire to help the Commonwealth. They're not partners to the Commonwealth, and they're not investing in the Commonwealth. It's a problem.
Any other questions or comments? Kristen?
I just wanted to comment that the Department of Revenue agrees with all of the concerns shared on both sides.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I have a question.
Commissioner Manzano
looking-
Diaz.
Thank you. Looking at the floor plan, the proposed floor plan, I noticed that you have smoking in the yellow areas as a proposed floor plan. And so it seems that people are going to be surrounded by smoke, basically, the way it's set up. Can someone please explain to me how that was decided, and also how does that keep the patrons safe from secondhand smoke?
Yeah. So when we laid out that smoking area, we specifically tried to keep it on the perimeters, away from the main cage, away from the pits, and away from all of the food venues. So that's kind of why you see it pushed up to the top and around the perimeter walls on that left-hand side. So we did try to maintain it and keep it away from spaces where people would be congregating.
Yes, and also just to add on to what Mike just said, so, our floor plan is a circle to some extent, and as Mike indicated, we have restaurants, full-service restaurants that are open-air concept restaurants, so it was really important for us to keep the smoking away from those areas. And also just to note, which we should have done earlier on, is all of our table games at Hollywood Casino Penn National are non-smoking. So we do not allow smoking at any of the table games.
And one last thing to add to Dan's note is that the two main entrances of the facility, the valet entrance and then the entrance next to that, where a majority of our people come in, we've cleared all the smoking away from that, so that's all non-smoking.
Commissioner Regan?
Yes, I was just wondering, I visited parks in Philadelphia recently, and they advised that they were remaining smoke-free after COVID. Were you aware of that? When we spoke, they also mentioned that they had found there was no loss of revenue at their facility.
Yes, obviously we follow in the news, and we're aware of that. So it's definitely something for us to keep an eye on as an industry and as, operators in the Commonwealth. So we'll be closely monitoring that and understanding what the long-term response is there.
Commissioner Durbin, did you have another question?
Have you gotten any pushback on not having smoking in the pit areas and in the table game area?
No, we've had actually very little pushback. Our table game players are very, I guess during the pandemic, they're very accustomed to being able to get up and move to a location. I think what's helpful for the table game players is that when we did reintroduce smoking back onto the gaming floor, there is smoking area that's close proximity to the pit, so it's not in the pit. So a lot of those players just step away from the game and they'll smoke and they'll come right back to their seat. But it's very little pushback from our players.
Might work in the whole casino.
Yeah.
I have one question, and maybe you covered it and I just missed it. What was the criteria that you used to decide which of these 191 machines was going to be removed?
Definitely looking at poor performing games. The property has a lot of older product that, quite frankly, we're having a hard time getting parts for to repair. And a lot of those games do not have the highest occupancy as we looked at prior to submitting this. And that's what we'll be looking at removing.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Enforcement Council, do you have a presentation?
The Office of Enforcement Counsel does not have a presentation. We would just ask that should the board decide to grant the petition as recommended, that it be done so subject to the conditions outlined in our answer.
Petitioners, any response to Enforcement Council's recommendation?
No response to Enforcement Council's statement or the conditions. We've seen them in advance, and we're in concurrence with the proposed conditions.
Any questions or comments from the board for Enforcement Council? Hearing none, then thank you very much. That concludes this proceeding.
Madam Chair, if we could have one housekeeping item, could we move the presentation into the record?
No objection.
No objection. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last public hearing scheduled before the board today pertains to Washington Trotting Association LLC's petition to modify the gaming floor at the Hollywood Casino at the Meadows. If any witnesses in this proceeding have previously identified and been sworn, again, I just remind them that they are still under oath. And all new fact witnesses that are non-attorneys, I would ask that you stand and be sworn in at this time.
Thank you.
Oh. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
As a reminder, everyone who's going to speak, please state and spell your name for the court reporter prior to your presentation. You may begin, petitioners.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Thank you for having us this morning. I would, at the start, like one housekeeping item for both the previous petition and this petition, if I could, move the handouts that Mr. King referenced and his statement that was handed out into the record of both the prior petition and this petition.
No objection.
Thank you. With that, we won't repeat ourselves on the skill gaming petition, but I will introduce our new team that's up at the table. Aaron Chamberlain, you know, in the middle. Tony Fabiel is the Vice President and General Manager at Meadows. At the other side of Aaron is Ben Kowalski, who is Vice President of Casino Operations. I'll refrain from repeating myself, but I am grateful for the work that FIU put in for this petition and the last petition, and we reached the same conclusions with respect to supply and demand of slot machines and the lack of any negative impact anticipated from the reduction of slot machines. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Tony and Ben.
Thanks. I'll kick it off. Ben Kowalski, Kowalski. Thank you guys for taking the time. And in respect for your time, this slide deck may seem very similar to one you just looked at, so I won't go too deep. We outlined the gross terminal revenue from 2007 through 2020. Very similar story to what you just heard. Declined steady as new opportunities and competitors join the market. And then with the COVID impact and the launch of iGaming, you see the dip at the end there. We're looking to reduce 317 games from our current floor. And what we see in the graph is the occupancy has remained pretty consistent at pre and post COVID levels. And the impact to the table to the right from the 4 months when we were offering nearly 1,700 machines to over nearly 2,300 machines, the GTR impact remained pretty flat. We are making investments into the property and are dedicated to the property, but what we see as an industry is that the idea of having a lot of machines as opposed to having a better quality machines with more space, smaller banks, and increasing guest comfort is a better business strategy in this day and age. So that's what we are looking to implement in our property. And just about the reduction we're seeking, and post-COVID, our peak occupancy in an hour was 54.6, which will, even at the reduced number to 2006, still gives us several hundred games available to our guests, so we don't believe there'll be a supply issue at all. And with that, I will turn it back to General Manager Tony Fabiel. Oh, I forgot the floor plan slides. Can I start over? So that's our floor. This is what it currently looks like. The blue is non-smoking. The orange is smoking. Well, we look to remain consistent. I think the smoking will go down 1 percentage point, and the number of machines in smoking will remain flat. And now, with that, I'll turn it to Tony Fabiel.
Thank you, Ben. Tony Fabiel, F-R-A-B-B-I-E-L-E. And I'd like to first, thank Madam Chair and the board for spending some time again. It's been almost, I think, over 2 years since I've been here, so it's great to be here in person again. We reached out to the MSOA, who have been phenomenal partners for us over at Hollywood Casino, now at the Meadows, and Kim Hankins, the executive director, about our petition today, and received no objections and full support from the MSOA with our proposed plan. Turning to reinvestment and innovation, it's really been a phenomenal story for us over the past 2 years. We've injected over $25 million in CapEx back into the facility, starting with the Eatery by Fabio Viviani, H Lounge, and the last time I was here, which was our floor reconfiguration, reimagining the property, opening up sight lines and making it easier to access the amenities that we had at the property. So we've been working on this project really for quite some time, and this year, just this past October, we decided to go ahead and change over to Hollywood Casino at the Meadows. So I know a lot of people still call us the Meadows, but we are now Hollywood Casino at the Meadows, and if you look at the map, it really portrays why we believe that's a great move for our property and for our company. As you've heard the petitions earlier with Morgantown coming on board in December, we have York, we have PNRC. We will now have 4 properties flagged in the state of Pennsylvania with the Hollywood Casino brand, and we believe that really unlocks the power of our My Choice program and is able to speak to our customers in a different way that our competitors can't do, which gives us an advantage. So that's really why we decided to do this, along with our omni-channel experiences with HollywoodCasino.com and the Barstool Sportsbook, really ties everything together. Going into reinvestment innovation, I won't spend a lot of time here. I think Dan did a great job covering cashless gaming for us, but it's been a good story. We have over 1,000 customers that have adopted the technology today, and we think that's going to continue to grow as we move into 2022, and something as well that'll differentiate us from our competitors. And moving into some of the reasons why we're here for this petition and what we're going to be doing with the existing sportsbook space and what used to be referred to as a carvery, which was a pseudo buffet type experience. We're really creating what we're calling a campus-like gaming experience that's going to have sports wagering, food, entertainment, as well as gaming that we plan on integrating all into this new experience, which we believe will differentiate what we do from some of our competitors around us. It's going to have the most state-of-the-art gaming equipment when it comes to sports wagering, and I think be something that really helps us attract that younger demographic that we're looking to grow into our property. And with that, I will turn it over to all of you for questions.
Yeah. Sure. Enforcement Counsel, do you have any questions?
Yes, I just have a few questions. In the last matter agenda, you discussed your opinion on the proliferation of unregulated skill slot machines. Just specifically as it relates to this petition, is this one of the causes you're seeking a slot reduction at the Meadows?
I would say so. Yes, I think that we've seen that the proliferation of gaming and the additional devices out there certainly are cannibalizing the market.
Okay, thank you. Will there be any impact on the number of employees at the Meadows as a result of the reduction?
There will not. We currently have 80 open positions, and we're continuing to hire.
I also apologize. I didn't introduce myself. It's Sarah Colasar, K-O-L-E-S-A-R, Assistant Enforcement Counsel for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. Okay. Will there be a reduction of work hours for the employees as a result of the reduction?
No reduction.
And will any of the Meadows employees go from full-time to part-time as a result of the reduction?
They will not.
Okay. And does the Meadows have plans to increase its table games as a result of the reduction?
We do not.
Okay. In your slideshow, it does reference the differences of the smoking areas in the on the gaming floor as a result of this reduction. Are there any plans to reduce or increase the smoking areas on the non-gaming floor as a result of this petition?
Not at this time.
Okay. And does this reduction have any impact on the gaming floor that is dedicated to sportsbook area?
I'm sorry?
Sportsbook area?
I could take it. You want me to take it?
Yeah.
I think it's the final OP move isn't
submitted yet, but we expect it to remain the same, in the same area.
Okay.
As it currently sits, not the temp that we're operating under as of last week.
Okay, thank you. And if approved, what is the anticipated timeframe for completion?
So we would begin, as soon as we receive approval, we would begin the work on the floor reconfiguration, and we anticipate the sportsbook conclusion to be similar to PNRC's timeframe, which is late Q1, early Q2 of 2022.
We have no further questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
I do, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Logan?
You brought up the name change. I heard from a few locals. What was the rationale to remove the word racetrack from it?
Well, we kept the name Meadows because of the racetrack and the significance that the racetrack has in the community and what it brings to us. So when we honestly removed racetrack, casino, hotel below, it's really a size issue when you go out and you put it into print, trying to keep it consolidated.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments from the board? I have the same question I had the last time about the criteria used to remove the 317 machines.
I'll tell you, that was performance, primarily in addition to the 206 of our games that were revoked through the OAC, the Mark 6s, which were all
The
also...
Aristocrat games?
Yeah, the Aristocrat games. 206 of the 317 machines coming off are of those games.
Any other questions or comments? If not, Enforcement Counsel, do you have a presentation?
We have no presentation. We just ask that should Washington Trotting Association's petition be approved, it be made subject to the conditions outlined in our answer.
Petitioners, any response?
No objection to those conditions, and all we would ask at this time is to move our PowerPoint into the record, and as well as the statement and exhibits from the earlier petition.
Any objection?
No objection.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes this proceeding. I'm going to have the rest of the next people get set up.
Hey, Ben. How you doing?
No.
Somebody else said he got that. I will.
It's nice to be able to quote somebody else for that.
Sorry. Oh, you didn't give her my script?
Morning. Good morning. How are you? I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
I'll try not to elbow you too much.
Okay. Appreciate it. We're big guys.
Just doesn't say, just slap me back.
Yeah, they'll have the attorneys on my end. So, Mikey.
How you doing, Cyrus?
All right.
Thank you for indulging me. So now we will have an informational presentation from Valley Forge Casino Resort on their unattended children mitigation plan that has culminated in Valley Forge entering into a memorandum of understanding with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. This memorandum of understanding has been provided to the board, and now we're going to hear a little bit more about it.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Wait, with that being said, although this is not a formal proceeding before the board, because the memorandum of understanding now obligates Valley Forge to do certain things, I think it is appropriate to place under oath any persons presenting today who are not attorneys. So I would ask that any non-attorney witnesses please stand to be sworn by the court reporter.
Please raise your right hand. Solemnly swear or affirm that you will tell the truth, but the truth.
Also, as it is always the case, I would ask anyone speaking to please state and spell your name for the court reporter. Valley Forge, you may proceed.
Madam Chair, I think we're going to begin and then hand it over to Valley Forge. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, Cyrus. So, Enforcement Counsel, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, Michael Rowland, ROL A&D with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter is the presentation of a memorandum of understanding between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Valley Forge Convention Center Partners, LLC, who's doing business as Valley Forge Casino Resort. By way of background, the board held a regularly scheduled public meeting on February 10th, 2021. During that meeting, a matter involving the involuntary exclusion of a patron who left two young children unattended in a parked vehicle at a licensed gaming facility was addressed. The board expressed several concerns and made several inquiries related to the response made to the unattended children by the facility in that instance. The matter concluded with the board's desire to have the Office of Enforcement Counsel and the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement review the policies and procedures of all Category 1, 2, 3, and 4 slot machine licensees relating to children left unattended and the history of such events. The presentation today is specific to the unattended minor incidents at Valley Forge. BIE conducted an investigation related to the history of unattended children at Valley Forge from 2018 to present, and the efforts undertaken by Valley Forge to deter, detect, and respond to such incidents. During the course of the investigation, BIE reviewed Valley Forge surveillance reports, emails, the surveillance department's daily log, security reports, the Valley Forge surveillance standard operating procedures, the Valley Forge security standard operating procedures, Bureau of Casino compliance reports, and camera schematics for areas where children could be left unattended, such as parking areas, food courts, the hotel lobby, and convention center. Additionally, BIE conducted interviews with Valley Forge personnel, which include the Vice President General Manager, Compliance Manager, Surveillance Manager, and Security Manager. BIE also interviewed members of the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board staff and representatives of the Pennsylvania State Police. Based on its review and examination of the instances in which a parent or a guardian left a child or minor unattended on property, Valley Forge has, in consultation with OEC, developed a 6-part mitigation plan to enhance its efforts to deter and detect such conduct by the responsible parent or guardian. And I believe at this point, Valley Forge would like to now present that plan to the board.
Thank you. You may proceed, Mr. King.
Madam Chair, just for the record, Adrian King, A-D-R-I-A-N-K-I-N-G, from the Ballard Spar firm, here on behalf of Valley Forge Convention Center Resort, as well as Boyd Gaming, the parent corporation. The team, as we've assembled here, is pleased to be before you today. I think we can all agree this is a very vexing and frustrating issue. And I want to commend your team, especially Mr. Rowland, Mr. Petrie, for, I think, working with us in a very constructive and cooperative fashion, in the sense of we've really worked closely together to find real solutions to solve this problem. And this problem is, as we know, really sits at the feet of very unresponsible parents. That being said, we realize we have a responsibility to run a safe and secure property, and by using data and experience and working cooperatively and again constructively with your team, I truly believe we've come up with some very good and solid solutions that, while we can never prevent human stupidity, it seems to constantly occur, we can attempt to mitigate it and make sure that dumb decisions don't become tragic ones. That's obviously our goal in every respect. So with that, I'm really going to turn it over to the team, and let me introduce everyone who's here. And going all the way far to my right is Ron Bailey, who's our Vice President and General Manager of the property. And next to Ron is Yuri Clinton, who has come in from Boyd from Las Vegas last night. He's Executive Vice President, General Counsel, and Secretary of the company. Next is Willie Tortez, who is the Director of Security for the company. And then immediately next to me is Janet Moggins, who's the Compliance Manager. And I also want to acknowledge Cassie Stratford, who is here, who is also Vice President of Legal Affairs and Assistant General Counsel for the company, who also came in from Las Vegas. So with that, I think Yuri wants to address the board on behalf of the parent company and the CEO, Keith Smith.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Yuri Clinton, C-L-I-N-T-O-N. I am the Executive Vice President, General Counsel, and Corporate Secretary for Boyd Gaming Corporation. I'm here today, and I flew in specifically for this matter to show the support that the most senior executives in Las Vegas give to this issue, the importance of this issue, and to reassure you that we have considered the 6-point plan that has been developed by Ron and his team in consultation with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. We've reviewed the MOU and we are fully supportive of it. It is a proactive plan that has a budget allocation, operational priority, full team member enforcement, and a technology application. And so we think that this is a very proactive way to address this issue, and the corporate offices will continue to support and monitor and work with Ron Bailey and his team. With that, I'll turn it over to Ron Bailey to walk you through the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I appreciate you taking the time to allow us to do this presentation. So just a brief overview of our property. We are a resort, casino or casino resort and convention center. We have over 100,000 square feet of meeting space, which certainly allows minors to come onto the property. We do sporting events, collector shows, weddings, graduations, parties, reunions, youth events, dancing competitions, fencing competitions. So we have a very diverse clientele that attends the property on a regular basis. Just to give you a brief overview of children left unattended at the property, between 2018 and 2020, we had 15 instances. I started at the property the last week of March, where it was brought to my attention the issue with unattended minors. We were a lot of focus and intensity to look at how we were going to address that. And you can see in 2021, we had 22 instances, and that's through September 30th. With that said, I think that focus and intensity allows us to better identify when we do have unattended minors on the property. And some of the efforts that we put in place, you'll see have shown that. Just a couple of statistics, because as we go through this presentation, the decisions that we made in the 6 points that we placed in here, we let the data drive us to the decisions that we're making to improve upon this. So in, of the 22 instances, 20 instances our team members located the unattended minor. 6 instances with when a Valley Forge team member observed the child immediately. 6 more instances, so 12 total. When Valley Forge responded, we responded within 5 minutes. 4 instances, 16 total. When Valley Forge responded, we responded within 10 minutes. You can see, if you can see on that page, it looks a little small, but the locations of the circumstances, again, is how we got to the decisions that we made. So on the left side, where the minors were located, the total of 22, so from a vehicle, a hotel, the food court, and our Be Connected Players Club. Where the adults were located, the sports book, the casino, the hotel, and the parking lot. Section B, our mitigation program, and I'll go a little bit more in depth into that. However, I wanted to as you look at 1 through 5 here, the top 4 we have already completed. So number 1, our reinforced team member involvement. There's still a few more in that process, which I'll talk about. Our infrared 4K IR cameras that we have placed in our parking lot, and our refreshed and enhanced unattended child signage plan. Additional support from an outside security company and the Upper Merion Police Department, and the one that is going to be ongoing and completed in 2022 is an extended surveillance camera coverage in our casino towers. So our reinforced team member involvement is really about awareness. And ensuring specifically the team members that are in the areas where the data shows that unattended minors have been located. We've done read-in signs with all of those team members. That includes the hotel operations, security, surveillance, the hotel teams, Be Connected teams. We've also done that with our table games dealers. We're approximately about 50% complete with all of those team members have been completed, but we'll be 100% by the end of this year. All new team members, when we started this process, any new team member that comes on to the property, they sign on that they're explain the unattended minor understanding, and we give that to them at that time. Something fairly new that you don't see really in the casino environment is an IR 4K camera program. IR is an infrared camera which looks at a different spectrum. Specifically for our parking lot, we're able to see inside of cars where traditional cameras cannot see through glass. We've purchased and installed already 2 of those cameras. We chose the locations for those cameras based on the data of where children were located unattended. That install happened October 6th. Camera location number 1, this just shows you the location of where that camera is positioned. And the second camera, again, there's a shot of that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bailey. These pictures show where the cameras are positioned, but do they also show what the cameras are looking at?
Yes. So when I click onto the next page, you're going to see exactly a little bit of a little demonstration or pictures of what actually the camera can see and the differences.
Thanks. I'm
yes,
sorry.
ma'am. No problem at all, please. So if you take a look at the first picture, this is at night. You can see the first shot at the top is that fixed shot, and that's really what any camera would be able to see. And if you look at the second shot, that's zoomed in. A traditional camera would not be able to see and look at that handicapped sign placard on the inside of the vehicle. Again, the next page. If you look at the picture on the right, that's a traditional camera where you can't really see the silhouette of the person. The one on the left is with the illumination of the IR camera on, and you can see significantly clearer that person. Another example photo. If you look on the picture on the right, the left, you can see a vehicle on the left, not the one in the driveway, but the one on the left is a picture of a SUV. The picture on the left is the actual inside of the vehicle with the IR camera, looking inside of the vehicle, actually able to see the silhouette of the body. Oops. So next is the Refresh and Enhance Signage Program. We looked at, again, where the locations of unattended minors were located, and we created a plan surrounded to attack that. So electronic signage with safety messages rotates on the TVs and monitors in the hotel room and on the property, and that's throughout the entire property. We had 7 parking lot banner signs that were on the property. We left those there, but we added 50 new banner signs with a child safety message, which I'll show you shortly. We also purchased 1,000 in-room table tents with a child safety message to place in each hotel room. And we also have purchased acrylic signs with a child safety message at strategic high visibility locations, including the food court and the entrance to the sports book. So if you look at the picture on the right, that placard is in every single room, both towers. Valley Forge letting customers know that we don't allow minors to be unattended here at the property. Additionally, we have 50 signs around our entire parking lot with that message of no minors may be left unattended without an adult. Violators will be cited by law enforcement and evicted. Additionally, throughout our food court, we've placed signage, enhanced signage as well, so that when parents are going through the property, when they walk into both entrances of our food court, there's another one where you can actually see the messaging. So there is no, there shouldn't be an opportunity for a customer to miss that messaging. Additionally, if you look at the entrance to our sports book, both sides of the sports book, that is the only entrance. There is messaging indicating that you do not leave your child unattended. And as we looked at the sports season, the NFL football season, sports betting grows significantly during football season. So we've partnered and hired the Upper Merion Police Department to be here during the peak football times, which is Saturdays and Sundays are the peak betting times. And again, we met with the sportsbook team to look at when the major bets were happening and the mass amount of those. We chose those times to have the Upper Merion Police Department here. That's again, Saturdays and Sundays. We also use an outside security company that patrols the parking lot 16 hours per day, 4 days per week for unattended minors. When they're not there, we use our own security staff in a vehicle that does basically the same function. The outside company that we do use, they are trained on unattended minors. We make that a really the highest topic as far as when they're driving around the parking lot, making sure that that's what they're looking for. Any questions?
Well, thank you. And did you say you came on board in March of 2021?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
Yes.
So you've done a lot in that short period of time.
Thank you. We've got a great team.
Any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Logan?
Yeah, just a comment. Mr. Clinton, Mr. Bailey, thank you for your dedication to this issue. I apologize that you have to spend so much money to try to parent and grandparent. I mean, we've seen horrendous. I think we have a 5-month on the agenda today. You lose track, unfortunately. You lose track of the examples. But I do appreciate all your work with Cyrus and his team, and this will go a long way, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. I didn't mention one thing, my apologies. We are adding cameras to our elevators and all of our casino floors. And so that is a project that we're in the planning phase now and will be finished in 2022. So every elevator, every single hallway, and there's a lot of curves in there in the hotel tower, but we will have full visibility in both hotel towers to make sure that we can keep this monitored. And additionally, with those cameras, we added 2 additional surveillance team members to make sure that we had an effective process to monitor that, so we can still monitor, existing business, but stay very focused on that as well.
Madam Chair, if I could, just one additional comment. And on page 13, it shows the signage outside in the parking lot and the notes in the hotel room, page 12 also. I appreciate the direct messaging. I forget what facility came before us and showed some kind of cute message. There's nothing cute about the issue. I mean, it needs to be, unfortunately, straightforward. So I appreciate that straightforward messaging.
Thank you.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz?
Thank you. The question I have is, you said that you have instituted this already. Can you tell me when this started? How long ago have you instituted all this?
I got here the last week of March. We really started that process in April. where we started really looking at and reviewing the unattended minors, even from security, how we do reporting, how we do reports in surveillance, how we do reports in security. We've changed a little bit of those processes in the writing of those. So we really started that in April, and it's an ongoing process. You know, if we find best demonstrated practices, we're going to look at implementing those, and so it's really a working document.
So have you seen any results as a result of the work that you've done in the last 6 months? Have you seen any differences?
Yes, absolutely. A couple of things. One, our team members are extremely more vigilant. You know, the statistic that I showed earlier is 20 out of the 22 instances that have happened, our team members located that. The other two, I believe a patron did, and another was a member of law enforcement that located that. And we're actually rewarding our team members with gift certificates when they do locate this. And so it's an incentive for them. But believe me, the team at Valley Forge, they're just committed because they know it's the right thing to do, but it's always great to reward your team members for that. And, you know, working with PSP, reporting to PGCB, it's really a partnership. You know, we've had a couple instances. We did have one instance in June where we had a customer that went on the gaming floor. There was an infant in the vehicle. We broke the glass. PSP came out. They ended up having to subdue that person, and that person went to jail. And so it's really it's really a partnership. And so we look at each case on a case-by-case basis, and we try to address it accordingly.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Commissioner, I'd like to add, even though I got here in March too at corporate, so Ron's been my best friend here at the corporate since then. I would say that as Ron's team has been evaluating the situation and making sure that everyone in Vegas understood the importance of it, I'd also like to acknowledge the role of the Office of Enforcement Counsel in helping us focus on the issue to the extent that not only the elements that Ron voluntarily implemented, but also the cameras in the hotel towers and the elevators. That was brought to our attention by Office of Enforcement Counsel, and that is not complete, but the planning for it is underway and the budget allocation has been made.
Thank you.
And since we're just patting each other on the back, I want to thank Valley Forge and Boyd for being very proactive. The infrared cameras, that's something that's new to the Commonwealth. That's something that they brought to our attention and that they implemented on their own without any encouragement. So I want to applaud them for putting their money where their mouth is.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Langen.
I was just wondering, I'm sorry. I was just wondering, especially for Mr. Clinton, you come from Vegas. Do you guys have these problems at other Boyd properties? And not specific to Boyd, but do you see this in other jurisdictions, or has this problem really been in Pennsylvania?
In the industry, the issue with patrons not being responsible is an issue. I will tell you that the focus here in Pennsylvania should be applauded. And so certainly as we look at best practices as a corporation, some of the ideas that were originated from this process will see their way in other properties.
Well, I have to give Commissioner Logan a lot of credit for bringing this to the attention of the casino industry. I've only been on the board for probably less than 2 years, about 2 years, and he's been focusing on this for a long time. I also would like to not only applaud you for all of the efforts you have made, but we have talked about the food courts, and I'm glad you have signage in the food courts, because people who go to a mall might leave the kids eating pizza while they run into a store and buy things, and this is not the same situation. And so unless you educate your clients and then patrons that this is not the same as just a regular food court, that you cannot leave your children, so I think that's great that you have signage there as well. So anything else at this point?
Just a snide comment. A previous applicant, you want to rip out those pages and submit it before we vote.
Okay. Well, thank you very, very much. That concludes our proceedings for this morning. We are going to take a 30-minute break, and we will resume with our agenda at 12:30. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Actually, look this morning.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing microphone on the end table. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 3. I can't. I'm going to try this one over here. Testing 1, 2. Is that any better? Because I can't hear anything. Testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it should be coming. I can't hear anything, but might be just because of where I'm sitting, not hearing a thing. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on. They're working. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah, without any feedback. I think that's better. Go in the. My only question is, can you go in the back and put in my headphones for one of the laptops? I will continue to test this microphone to see if it is working. Testing 1, 2, 3. Hopefully, we'll get this problem solved so that when somebody does talk from the end table, you'll be able to hear them talking and asking questions instead of being picked up on the outside microphones. I think I probably talked enough, huh? Okay. All right. Maybe I'll swap them out.
And, Madam Chairwoman, if you give me 2 seconds, I will move.
Like you can tell right there, they want to get going. Ask them.
You can say we're going to get started. Get ready.
Am I on? With our afternoon session, thank you for indulging us with the 30-minute break. I believe Mr. King has a motion he'd like to make. Cyrus, can you just step up, please? Okay.
No, I neglected to move into the record the PowerPoint presentation that was presented to the board by Valley Forge Casino Resort and Boyd Gaming with respect to their unattended minors mitigation program, and I simply moved to include that in the record of today's proceeding.
Any objection?
No objection. The Office of Enforcement Counsel neglected to move its memorandum of understanding into the record. As a result, we'd ask that the board move the memorandum of understanding into the record.
No objection. Thank you.
Both are moved into the record. Okay, first we're going to hear from our Executive Director, Kevin O'Toole. Kevin?
Okay. I left my mask.
That's okay, you're speaking, you don't need to have a mask on.
No, but when I am finished, I'm going to walk through that door. Don't take any offense to it, please. I'm just going to go get my mask
We
again.
understand.
Just don't breathe
Thank
as you walk by it.
Good afternoon, Chair Smiler and members of the board. On behalf of all of the staff, I would like to welcome Commissioner Manzano-Diaz to the board.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your appointment, and we look forward to working with you.
I do too. Thank
For
you.
my executive director's report this afternoon, I wanted to briefly note the most current information on the generation of revenue in the land-based casinos in Pennsylvania, because they continue to do exceptionally well. Now, when I tell you what the figures were for October, or at least the preliminary figures, you know, records were set. Now, it's certainly important to recognize that today we have 15 land-based casinos, where in 2020, at least up through the end of November of 2020, we had 12. And we had 12 land-based casinos for quite a few years before the Gambling Expansion Act did bring new properties. And we have casino number 16 coming on board before the end of the year. And you heard a presentation about that. So with respect to October, we set a record in table game revenue at the land-based casinos. The preliminary figures show that table games in the casino reached $89 million for that single month. So that $89 million is the largest amount of table game revenue generated at the land-based casinos in Pennsylvania since we first began table games in July of 2010. A number of factors contribute to table games continuing to do very well, one of which is the retail sports books that have been built at most of the land-based casinos. That has contributed to table game play, and the extra market that has been created with the new with the new casinos coming on board. And with respect to slot revenue, October again performed in excess of $200 million in slot revenue for the month of October. So 5 of the most recent, 5 of the last 7 months have shown $200 million or more in slot revenue, which is a benchmark figure to say, hey, we had a good month. The casinos had a good month in October. So one of the concerns when the gambling expansion bill was passed are the new products, the online casino games and online table games, sports wagering, VGTs and fantasy sports. Are they going to reduce the revenue being generated at the land-based casinos? That does not appear to be the case. There continues to be exceptional production, productivity in iGaming, and also to an extent sports wagering. But this has been a really informative meeting today, and I would like to just recognize the extraordinary efforts that the casino executives and their management teams have done to bring their casinos back to pre-pandemic levels. A number of casinos have exceeded their pre-pandemic averages. Some are still striving to get to that point. But you were able to meet a number of those casino executives today. They've done a great job, along with their colleagues from the casinos who do not have an item on today's agenda. They've worked exceptionally hard, along with our staff at each of the 15 casinos, to bring the casinos back after 2 closures, not just one, but a 3.5-month closure followed by most of December of 2020 was closed. It's not easy to shut down a casino. It's not easy to reopen a casino in a seamless way, but we've accomplished that here in Pennsylvania. So it's encouraging to see these figures, because they do reflect that there appears to be a true economic recovery that is benefiting both the casinos as well as the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for Kevin? Hearing none. Thank you, Kevin. Next, we have Danette Bixler-George, Human Resources. Danette.
Good day, Madam Chair, board members. The Office of Human Resources has one motion for your consideration today relative to the hiring of 7 individuals. The following 6 individuals have completed the PGCB interview process, background investigation, and drug screening, and are recommended for hire by Christopher Schroeder, Director for Casino Compliance. Brandon Wilt has been selected as a technical field representative for Hollywood Penn National Casino and will also serve Hollywood York Casino. Dominic Serapiglia has been selected as a casino compliance representative for Rivers Pittsburgh Casino. Brendan Bartley has been selected as a casino compliance representative for Live Philadelphia Casino. Mark Balzani has been selected as a casino compliance representative for Wind Creek Casino. Zachary Harley has been selected as a casino compliance representative for Wind Creek Casino as well. And Alyssa Hoops has been selected as a casino compliance representative for Hollywood Morgantown Casino. Also, Stephen Foley has been selected as an investigator for the Southeast Regional Office. He too has completed the interview process, background investigation, and drug screening, and is recommended for hire by Paul Morrow, Director of Investigations and Enforcement. Unless you have any questions, I ask that the board consider a motion to approve these actions as indicated.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the applicants for hire as proposed by the Human Resources Director.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Thank you.
Next, we have Acting Chief Counsel Steve Cook.
Good afternoon. Our first agenda item today pertains to temporary regulation 125-239. This temporary regulation package contains 4 separate table game side wagers or modifications. The 4 side wagers and modifications are Lightning Roulette, Majestic Match Baccarat, Buster Blackjack, and Up Card Luck Blackjack. Lightning Roulette is a modified version of roulette, which allows a patron to have a straight wager pay out at a significantly increased odds. After the placement of all bets and a prior spin of the wheel, a random number is generated, which will select between 1 and 5 lucky numbers on the layout and will assign each one of those numbers an increased payout. If a player placed a straight wager on one of the lucky numbers and the ball ends up in that compartment, the player wins an increased payout. Majestic Match Baccarat is a wager placed by a player, on the banker's hand or the player's hand, or that the banker's hand or the player's hand will have a suited king or queen, called a royal match, or two cards of the same suit, called a suited match. Additionally, the currently existing temporary regulation for Buster Blackjack are being modified to permit the game to be offered on tables using 4 decks of cards and including a pay table for that use of that many cards. And finally, up card luck blackjack is a side wager that pays out if the dealer has an up card between 2 and 7, and the player has an initial hand total of between 9, 11, 18, and 20, or a blackjack. I would request a motion to approve this temporary regulation 125-239.
Any questions or comments from the board? Actually, Steve, I have several questions. Just kidding.
I have a deck of cards I could share.
Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves the board adopt temporary regulation 125-239 regarding table game side wagers and variations as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion carries.
Next before the board for consideration are 6 petitions for consideration. 4 of these petitions were heard by the board earlier today during public hearings. The remaining 2 matters can be decided on the documentary record. In each of these matters, the board has, in advance of this meeting, been provided with the entire evidentiary record, in addition to what was heard earlier today. The first petition before the board is Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment Incorporated's request for approval from the board to conduct sports wagering at the Parks Race and Sportsbook at Malvern, a non-primary location for horse race wagering previously approved by the Horse Racing Commission. As heard earlier today, Greenwood Gaming, a Category 1 slot machine licensee, has partnered with the restaurant chain Chicky and Pete's to place off-track betting sites at one off-track betting site at a new Chicky and Pete's restaurant in Malvern. Specifically, Greenwood plans to locate the Oaks Race and Sportsbook, which is now closed, to this new location, which is in Chester County. The Pennsylvania Racehorse and Development and Gaming Act authorizes Category 1 licensees holding sports wagering certificates to conduct sports wagering at non-primary locations for horse race wagering. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to this petition, subject to the conditions outlined in their answer, and in addition to that, both parties have requested certain information in the pleadings be treated as confidential, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Do I have any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Logan?
I don't. Just a comment. I'm going to vote for it hesitantly, but I think the applicant missed an opportunity to explain potential children being left at the table in the restaurant. And it's going to happen. I mean, it's absolutely going to happen. So I ask the applicant to work with Chicky and Pete's to find that synergy of how they identify that child with an adult that could be left, and hopefully we don't see them here with one of those unattended child issues.
I absolutely agree. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board grant Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment, Inc.'s petition for authority to conduct sports wagering at the Parks Race and Sportsbook at Malvern as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and with the conditions to be outlined in the board's order. I further move that the board grant in part the petitioner's request for confidentiality and deny OEC's request for confidentiality.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The second petition before the board today is Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association's request for approval to conduct table games at the Hollywood Casino Morgantown, a Category 4 facility scheduled to open later this year. This matter was also heard earlier today during a public hearing. As the board heard, Mountain View's petition is requesting authorization to operate 30 table games upon opening of this facility. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to this request, subject to conditions outlined in its answer, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Manzano Diaz moves that the board grant Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC's petition for approval to conduct table games and the issuance of a table games operation certificate for Hollywood Casino Morgantown as described by the Office of Chief Counsel and with the conditions to be outlined in the board's order.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next before the board is a second petition filed by Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, specifically a petition to modify the gaming floor plan at the Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse. The board heard from Mountain View earlier today on this request as well. Mountain View is requesting it be allowed to permanently reduce the number of slot machines on its gaming floor by 191, reducing their current complement of 1,927 machines to 1,736 machines. Mountain View indicates there is less demand for these machines, and they are requesting to eliminate and remove these underperforming machines, asserting that it will create a savings in maintenance, overhead, and utility costs without negatively impacting the property's overall gross terminal revenue. After review by the Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement's Financial Investigations Unit, the Office of Enforcement Counsel does not object to this relief, subject to conditions outlined in its answer. There is also a request that some sensitive information in the pleadings be maintained as confidential, and that is before the board as well, and this matter is ripe for the board's consideration.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board grant Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC's petition to modify the gaming floor plan as described by the Office of Chief Counsel and with the conditions to be outlined in the board's order. I further move that the board grant the parties' request for confidentiality.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Washington Trotting Association, LLC's petition to modify their gaming floor was also heard earlier today by the board during a public hearing. WTA is seeking to remove 317 slot machines, thereby reducing their complement from 2,323 machines to 2,006 machines. As in the preceding petition regarding Mountain View, WTA avers that the machines they are seeking to remove will not have a negative impact on overall revenues and will allow for some savings in overhead costs. Again, after Financial Investigations Unit review, the Office of Enforcement Counsel does not object to this request. If WTA's request is approved, the Office of Enforcement Counsel proposes to the board impose several standard conditions which were outlined in OEC's answer and which primarily focus on security, surveillance, and implementation of the changes. And again, there is also a request that certain sensitive information be maintained as confidential. And now this matter is ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant Washington Trotting Association, LLC's petition to modify the gaming floor plan as described by the Office of Chief Counsel and with the conditions to be outlined in the board's order. I further move that the board grant the parties' request for confidentiality.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted.
The next matter before the board is J&J Ventures of Pennsylvania, LLC's, and Second State Gaming, LLC's joint request for the board to approve a change in ownership. Both J&J Ventures and Second State Gaming are video gaming terminal operator licensees with the Commonwealth. Second State currently has VGTs in 12 truck stop establishments in Pennsylvania. J&J does not have any active VGTs placed in Pennsylvania at this time. However, an affiliated company of J&J is an established VGT operator in Illinois. J&J Ventures and Second State Gaming have entered into a purchase agreement under which J&J Ventures would acquire all of Second State Gaming's terminal placement agreements and hard gaming assets. The parties state that upon execution of the agreement, which is expected to close by December 31st of this year, Second State will not be a party to any terminal placement agreements in Pennsylvania, will have no other gaming-related assets, and will surrender its terminal operator license. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the parties' request, subject to conditions outlined in its answer, and the parties further seek that the agreement, the written agreement underlying this sale, also be maintained as confidential, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant J&J Ventures Gaming of Pennsylvania LLC and Second State Gaming LLC's joint petition for approval of change in ownership. I further move that the board grant the petitioner's request for confidentiality.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The final petition before the board today is Samantha Schaud's request for removal from the board's involuntary exclusion list. On March 17, 2017, Ms. Schaud, who was 20 years old at the time, attempted to gain access to the Floret Rivers Pittsburgh by presenting an identification that did not belong to her. She was subsequently escorted to the Pennsylvania State Police Office, evicted from the casino until the age of 22, and charged with a summary offense. On August 9, 2017, subsequent to a petition filed by the Office of Enforcement Counsel, the board placed Ms. Schaud on the exclusion list until at least her 22nd birthday, at which time she could petition for removal from the list. Ms. Schaud is now 24 years old and is requesting removal from the self-exclusion list. OEC has no objection and has indicated that they're not aware of any violations of her exclusion that have occurred. And this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant Samantha Schaud's petition for removal from the involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next matter before the board are withdrawals and surrenders, as well as one report and recommendation. Relative to the withdrawals and surrenders, the board has received petitions to withdraw the applications or surrender the credentials of the following individuals: Anthony Paul Rodillo Sr., Ernest Wilbur Glidden, Keith Austin Causey, Leslie Marcel Ottenlegge, Ian Williams, John Danku, David Wilson, John Constantine, Jeremy Samuel Schlachter, Kenneth Jack Alexander, Terrence Downey, and Todd Francis McTavish. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to any of these withdrawals, and as a result, if the board grants the same, they'd be doing so without prejudice to each of these persons. And these matters are now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board issue orders to approve the withdrawals and surrenders as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
The final matter of the Office of Chief Counsel before the board today is one report and recommendation received from the Office of Hearings and Appeals. This report and recommendation pertains to an individual by the name of John Timar and has been provided to the board in advance of this meeting, along with the complete evidentiary record. Additionally, Mr. Timar was notified that the board was considering his matter today and that he could briefly address the board if he so choose. If Mr. Timar is present in the room, I'd ask him to come forward at this time if he wishes to address the board. By way of background, on January 11th, 2021, Mr. Timar submitted a gaming employee occupation permit application.
Mr. Timar, you sit over there.
Here?
Yes.
By way of just a little bit of summary, Madam Chair, by way of background, on January 11th, 2021, Mr. Timar submitted a gaming employee occupation permit application seeking work as a table games dealer at Live Casino Philadelphia. In March of 2021, the Office of Enforcement Counsel sent Mr. Timar a letter recommending that his application be denied due to the underlying circumstances related to his previous terminations of employment at both Sands Bethworks Casino, now Wind Creek, and Sugar House Casino, now Rivers Philadelphia. Specifically, the Office of Enforcement Counsel believed Mr. Timar misrepresented on his application why his employment ended at each of these casinos, even after being given the opportunity to amend his application. A hearing in this matter was held on June 17th, 2021. OEC appeared offering testimony and documentary evidence. Mr. Timar also appeared and testified on his own behalf. The evidence presented at the hearing showed that Mr. Timar had initially listed on his application that his reasons for leaving both of his prior dealer positions in Pennsylvania were to secure new job opportunities. He further stated on his application that he'd never been terminated from a position as part of a disciplinary action. His amended application, BIE gave him the opportunity to amend his application, but even in the amended application, he did not fully disclose the facts surrounding the terminations of employment at the two prior Pennsylvania casinos. OEC's testimony showed that Mr. Timar was in fact terminated from Sands after he was found to be concealing chips and playing them in his toke box. In fact, at the time OEC filed to have Mr. Timar's gaming permit revoked for these actions, and when it went before the board on May 2nd, 2018, Mr. Timar appeared at that hearing, and after hearing from him, the board allowed Mr. Timar to keep his permit, but warned him that further digressions would not be tolerated. Subsequent to that appearance before the board in 2018, Mr. Timar was terminated from his employment at that time with Sugar House Casino in Philadelphia after it was determined that he repeatedly failed to collect a promotional rake while dealing poker. Thereafter, Mr. Timar's Pennsylvania gaming permit expired, requiring him to reapply if he chose to seek employment in a Pennsylvania casino, which he is now doing. In this present proceeding, Mr. Timar testified about personal issues he was dealing with at the time of his termination from Sugar House that led to a lapse in judgment. Mr. Timar provided documentation verifying he was undergoing medical treatment at the time of that termination. Relative to his lack of forthrightness on his present gaming permit application, about his prior Pennsylvania employment, Mr. Timar testified that the Human Resources Office at Live Casino completed the application for him, and he did not thoroughly review it. I would note for the record that Mr. Timar, I believe, is presently licensed in both New Jersey and Maryland. The report and recommendation issued by the hearing officer after hearing all of this evidence recommends that Mr. Timar's application be denied. After receiving this report and recommendation, Mr. Timar filed exceptions to the hearing officer's recommendation, stating that he would like a new hearing because his application was mishandled by Human Resources at Live Casino, and that he did not personally do anything to be dishonest. And this matter is now before the board for consideration. I would note for the record that Mr. Timar is present, and if he wishes to speak, will need to be sworn in by the court reporter.
Mr. Timar, could you stand and be sworn in by the court reporter, please?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony
I do, yeah. All right.
Mr. Timar, if you wish to make some remarks to the board, can you please state and spell your name and then make whatever remarks you'd like to make?
Yeah, my name is John Timar, Timar, and I think they said it all correctly. I said I came here before, I just recognized most of you, and I got a second chance for something that I was taught that wasn't right, and I continued to do everything correctly, and the reason I did get fired from Sugar House was, I said, just the mentally not checked out. I didn't do anything stealing egregiously, and I wasn't taking the promotion dollar. I was taking the rake that goes to the casino and everything. Everything was done correctly. It was just one day that that they took me off the casino floor, and they let me go, and I couldn't do anything about it. And then I went to Maryland Live, worked there, and my transfer was accepted to go to Philly Live when it opened. I did all I had to do, and then I didn't realize my license expired, so HR did my gaming application in the office, and it wasn't done properly. And then I was called by the person doing the investigation to do it, to amend it, and I had no idea how to. I asked her, and she said she couldn't give me any information on it. So I did the best of my knowledge and put down what I could. And then as we're here now, and I had to explain myself like a month or two ago, and it was still denied. So I was just going in front of you guys. See, I'm still honest and everything. It was just, I was fired for just not procedurally doing the correctly thing, nothing dishonest or anything bad with that. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Timar, why did you say that you would never terminate it on your application?
I didn't put any of that on my application. They just gave me, when I was the HR, they just said where I worked and all that, and they didn't ask me any of that because it was rushed when because they didn't have my original application because they thought they were transferring it over. So after a while, it just never came. I didn't even know. So I just sat with the office, and they told me what to write down, and I put all my information down, and they put it in the computer in the HR office to get everything done. And then I was told by the person investigator to amend it, which I said I guess I did it incorrectly, and then I asked her how to do it, and she said she couldn't give me that information. So I wasn't trying to hide anything, because why would I hide something from the people that are going to see it anyway? It doesn't make sense.
Just to be clear, are you saying that you never did anything illegal?
No, I'm not saying, no, I'm not saying I didn't do anything illegal. No, I got a second chance, and I 100%, I value that. But yeah.
And I'm assuming that when they ask you to fill out the application, all that you really have to do is just tell the truth.
100%.
Okay, so when they asked you what led to your leaving your prior employment, did you tell the truth?
For the first one, for the amendment or the original application?
Both.
The first one I didn't fill out, it was HR. They told me to write down the information, and they put it in the computer. I didn't fill out anything.
How about when you had to amend it then?
I believe I said that the board, I didn't know what to put in my words, so I said the board
Well, you were
approved.
supposed to put down why you were terminated, and you know why you were terminated. I'm just wondering why that was so hard to put that down on the paperwork.
It wasn't. I was just trying to put in the best words. I think it was written down. I said I went before the board, and I was just saying why. I said I just filled it out incorrectly. I wasn't trying to hide anything, because I'm not going to try to hide something that the board's going to see anyway, because it's already in, bold lettering what happened.
Exactly, and that's
Yeah.
why it's so confusing to us to try to understand why you weren't truthful on it. If you're saying you knew we would find out anyway, I mean, it seems that it was simple. Why were you terminated? I was terminated for stealing. That's like 5 words.
Yeah, I said, that's why when I asked, I said, did I do this correctly? The investigator, and she said she couldn't help me. So I thought I put down that they amended it and everything was fine. That's what I wasn't trying to hide anything. That's the only reason. I'm not trying to hide anything, because it's going to you guys that already know everything that happened. So it doesn't make sense why I'm trying to hide something.
Right, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Commissioner Dermody?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering, you say other people or Human Resources filled out your application.
Correct.
Did you look at it when they were done? Did you review it?
No, they just submitted everything.
Well, they asked you questions, and you just talked to Commissioner Regan that you answered those questions.
For which one?
They answered questions for you. Did you read it after they were done?
No, they just told me they wrote down what information I had to put down, and they input it in the computer.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Commissioner Mazzano Diaz?
Yes, are you presently licensed in Maryland and New Jersey, and are you working there?
Yeah, New Jersey, yes, and Maryland, yeah. I'm currently working at the Live property.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Thanks.
That's just for clarity. You filled out the information for the first application, HR typed it in the system.
They told me what information to write down, and then they inputted it in the computer, what they needed.
So they told you what information for you to write down, and then you wrote it down, and then they typed it into the system?
In the computer, correct.
So during that transfer of information, were you asked if you were ever terminated from a job?
No.
That wasn't, because
No.
that was one of the questions, but that was never asked to you?
No.
And then when you amended, I'm just curious, what did you say on the application when you asked if you were terminated?
I believe I put when I went in front of the board and everything was, I think, amended. That's what I put. I think it's written down somewhere. I don't know the exact wording. And that's why when I asked what the right thing to put was from the investigator, and she couldn't help me. She's like, I can't help you with this. You have to do it. Which I don't know I don't know if they could help or not. I guess they can.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Just a comment, John, I think the only one here when you came before.
Okay, yeah.
But these folks keep impeccable records.
I got you.
And here's your record.
Okay.
Okay. And in there, we cut you a break.
Correct.
You remember why we cut you a break?
Correct.
No, do you remember why?
Yeah, because of my grandmother.
Yeah. But we also told you not to come back. So unfortunately, with that, I'm not sure we can give you a third chance. So with that, Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals regarding the denial of John Timar's gaming employee occupation permit application as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Before I have a second, does anybody else have any questions or comments? But thank you, Commissioner Logan.
Sure.
I don't know why is that funny?
I said sure.
No, I don't know. Okay,
Because he moved before I asked for a motion.
I got
So
you.
that's-
John, this isn't funny.
But I agree 100%. I'm just saying what happened, the reason I've gotten fired, because I said it was for procedural information. I didn't steal anything. I wasn't dishonest, and it shows that. I said I took your second chances 100%, and I agreed with it. But I said I wasn't trying to hide anything on my application. It was done by somebody else. I have no reason to hide anything, that I was given a second chance.
Thank you, Mr. Timar.
No, you're fine.
I would just recommend moving forward that any information, especially any personnel information that's pertaining to any work situation, for yourself, that you always read it and go over it and question it. I think that, this can be a learning experience for you to make sure that all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed before you allow anyone to submit information on your behalf.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
Okay, so with the motion by Commissioner Logan, do I have a second?
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next, we have Bureau of Licensing Matters with Director Sean Hannon. Sean.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair Smiler and members of the board. Before the board today will be license consideration of one video game terminal operator, one conditional video game terminal establishment. In addition, there will be 608 principals, key employees, gaming and non-gaming employees, as well as qualifier applicants. Finally, there will be consideration of 8 gaming service providers. The first matter for your consideration is a video gaming terminal operator license for Triple Diamond Gaming, LLC. A VGT operator owns, services, or maintains VGTs for placement and operation at truck stop establishments. Triple Diamond Gaming, LLC was previously issued a conditional VGT operator license. The Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement has completed its investigation, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that you consider the order to license Triple Diamond Gaming, Incorporated.
Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant the video gaming terminal operator license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next is a conditional VGT establishment license for Love's Travel Stops and Country Stores Incorporated, number 731, doing business as Love's Travel Stop number 731 at 1011 Newcastle Road, Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania. The board may conditionally license an establishment provided the applicant has never been convicted of a felony, is current on state taxes, has submitted a completed application, and has not been convicted of a gambling law violation. A preliminary review of this applicant indicates that they meet these criteria. Please note that this is strictly a conditional approval. Final approval will be based on the applicant meeting all the eligibility criteria provided in the statute. A final eligibility determination will follow investigation and site inspection by the Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that the board consider a motion to approve the conditional VGT establishment license for Love's Travel Stop number 731.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant the conditional video gaming terminal establishment license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
In addition, there are principal and key employee licenses. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with a proposed order of 5 principals and 12 key employees. I ask that the board consider the order approving these licenses.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant the principal and key employee license and described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
There are also temporary licenses. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order regarding the issuance of a temporary license for 1 principal and 11 key employees. I ask that the board consider the order approving these licenses.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board grant the temporary principal and key employee credentials as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next are gaming permits and non-gaming registrations. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a list of 360 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted temporary or full occupation permits and 163 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted registrations under the authority delegated to the Bureau of Licensing. I ask that the board consider a motion approving the order.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
May I have a motion, please? Oh, I'm sorry. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board approve the applications for gaming employee occupation permits and non-gaming employee registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
There is also a recommendation of denial for 2 gaming employees. The applicants were notified that they were being recommended for denial and failed to request a hearing within the specified time frame. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with the orders addressing the applicants, who the Office of Enforcement Counsel has recommended for denial. I ask that the board consider the orders approving the denials.
Enforcement Council continues to request denial in each matter.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board deny the gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next matters for your consideration are withdrawal requests. In each case, the license, permit, or registration is no longer required. For today's meeting, I have provided the board with 2 key employees, 33 gaming, and 11 non-gaming employee applicants. I ask that the board consider the orders approving these withdrawals.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant the withdrawal of key gaming and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next, we have an order to certify the following gaming service providers: LV Concrete LLC and Simple Bet Incorporated. I have provided you with a draft order and asked the board consider the order certifying these gaming service providers.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the gaming service provider certifications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
May I have a second, please?
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Finally, for your consideration are gaming service provider registrations. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order and an attached list of 6 registered gaming service providers. I ask that the board consider the order registering these gaming service providers.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the gaming service provider registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted. Thank you,
This concludes
Sean.
Bureau of Licensing.
Thank you. We will now hear from Chief Enforcement Counsel Cyrus Petrie.
Good afternoon. The Office of Enforcement Counsel will present 13 matters today for the board's consideration, in which we will request the approval of 4 consent agreements, 1 revocation, 2 suspensions, and 6 involuntary exclusions. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Category 1 licensee Chester Downs and Marina, doing business as Harris, Philadelphia. The matter will be presented by Senior Enforcement Counsel John Crow. Representatives for Harris is present, and at this time I request that those individuals please introduce themselves for the record.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Smiler, members of the Commission. Stephen D. Schreier with law firm of Blank Rome, here on behalf of Chester Downs and Marina, doing business as Harris, Philadelphia. And with me today is the Vice President of Security, Matthew Connor.
And I would ask if Mr. Connor is going to testify that he be sworn in if he's not an attorney.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Thank you. You may proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board. John Crow, C-R-O-H-E, for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement reached between Chester Downs and Marina LLC, doing business as Harris Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack, and the Office of Enforcement Counsel regarding 2 incidents of failure to protect assets. The first violation occurred on November 30th, 2020, wherein an individual, Markyle Washington, approached the Global Cash Advance Counter, a cash advance service located on the racing level at Harris, Philadelphia, and was granted permission by the Global Cash cashier to use the telephone station at the counter. At the same time, the cashier was counting out her drawer and turned her back several times to Markyle Washington. The cashier opened the drawer, left it open, and turned her back to the counter and Markyle Washington. Markyle Washington reached into the open drawer and stole $24,000 worth of cash. The cashier took notice of the theft and pressed the panic alarm. Markyle Washington was able to flee the facility with the cash before he could be apprehended. The cashier was terminated as a result of this incident. There is no evidence or indication of collusion between Markyle Washington and the cashier. Markyle Washington has not made restitution, but has been permanently banned from Harris, Philadelphia. On July 28, 2021, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to exclude Markyle Washington. This matter remains pending. Harris, Philadelphia has represented that the Global Cash cashier was terminated and a procedural change was made so that the counting of cash bags only takes place at the casino cage, and Harris, Philadelphia also changed its policy to prohibit the use of the telephone at the service desk by customers. The next violation occurred on February 2nd, 2021, wherein an individual, John Ricketts, was able to pull up the corner of the lid of a float at Baccarat table number 704. Slide his hand under the lid and remove various denominations of gaming checks totaling $955. Mr. Ricketts cashed out the checks from the cage before exiting the facility. John Ricketts' theft was not discovered until after he left the property. John Ricketts ultimately made full restitution and was permanently banned from Harris. A petition to exclude John Ricketts will be heard by the board later today. Harris, Philadelphia has represented that a memorandum was issued reminding all table game supervisors of the procedures that are to be followed to ensure that chip rack lids are secured at all closed table games. Harris, Philadelphia further represented that its director of surveillance has stressed with all surveillance staff the importance of staying diligent if surveillance observes a person sitting at a closed table in a closed pit. This is the first consent agreement of this nature between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Harris Philadelphia since Harris Philadelphia's Category 1 slot machine license was last renewed by the board. A compliance conference was held between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Harris Philadelphia on November 7, 2019 regarding 4 separate incidents of failure to protect assets. The Office of Enforcement Counsel also issued Harris Philadelphia warning letters, 6 in total, on June 21st, 2017, November 17th, 2017, June 5th, 2019, January 23rd, 2020, June 30th, 2020, and July 16th, 2020, regarding failure to protect assets. The Office of Enforcement Counsel and Harris Philadelphia respectfully request that the board approve the consent agreement and stipulations of settlement, that Harris Philadelphia pay a civil penalty of $22,500, as well as the $2,500 administration fee for costs incurred by board staff in connection with investigations into this matter.
Thank you. Harris, do you have any response?
Yes, thank you, Chair Smiler. I've heard the recitation of the facts as well as the terms of the consent agreement that have been outlined by Office of Enforcement Counsel. And on behalf of Harris Philadelphia, we agree with those facts and we agree with the terms of the consent agreement. We would ask that the board approve the consent agreement, and we're here if you have any questions regarding these consents.
Any questions or comments from the board? No? Okay. Hearing none. Do you have any questions or further comments?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustia moves that the board approve the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Chester Downs Marina, doing business as Harris Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack, as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Category 1 licensee, Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC, doing business as Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse. The matter will be presented once again by Senior Enforcement Counsel John Crow. Representatives for Hollywood Casino are present, and at this time I would request that those individuals please introduce themselves for the record.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Michael Fabius from the law firm Ballard Spar. Here with me are Rhea Loney and Alex Vizda. Rhea is Director of Compliance at the Interactive Division, and Alex is Director of Compliance, Pennsylvania, and the retail properties. They are both lawyers as well.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, the next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement reached between Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, doing business as Hollywood Casino Penn National Racecourse, and the Office of Enforcement Counsel regarding iGaming self-exclusion violations. On November 5th, 2020, Hollywood Casino self-reported that an iGaming self-exclusion violation occurred on HollywoodCasino.com. Hollywood Casino then conducted an internal investigation which revealed that certain self-excluded individuals were able to create an account or deposit funds on an existing account and wager on HollywoodCasino.com and BarstoolSportsbook.com. Hollywood Casino properly self-reported these violations and explained that these violations occurred as a result of an error committed by the Hollywood Casino IT department following an upgrade to the system that feeds self-exclusion data to the iGaming platform, which resulted in certain additions to the self-exclusion list not being updated from June 9th, 2020 until November 5th, 2020. A separate issue was also uncovered wherein White Hat Gaming Incorporated's name matching logic did not block self-excluded users if their names were not an identical match to the name recorded during sign-up. For example, someone with the legal name Alexander signing up as Alex. A total of 9 individuals were able to create an account, log into an existing account, or deposit on an existing account. Deposits totaling $13,911 and wager while they were on the iGaming self-exclusion list. And Hollywood Casino had received proper notice that these individuals were on the iGaming self-exclusion list. Hollywood Casino has represented that the issues which resulted in these violations have since been remedied. The Office of Enforcement Counsel and Hollywood Casino respectfully requests that the board approve the consent agreement and stipulations of settlement, that Hollywood Casino pay a civil penalty of $57,500 as well as $2,500 administrative fee for costs incurred by board staff in connection with investigations into this matter.
Hollywood, do you have anything you want to add to?
Briefly, we would want to express our concurrence with the recitation of the facts, and we certainly acknowledge our responsibility, along with our platform providers, for allowing patrons on the self-exclusion list, iGaming self-exclusion list, to have unblocked iGaming user accounts. Mr. Crow accurately noted the issues that led to these 9 individuals slipping through the system. On the IT upgrade, I want to note that the feed was suspended for an upgrade actually in March of 2020. It was inadvertently not reinstated, but during the course of the pandemic, while the retail property was shut down, there was a manual process to feed the new enrollees in the self-exclusion list to the platform. So while the retail casino was shut down, the self-exclusion enrollees were being added manually. When the retail casino reopened, the manual process stopped on the assumption that the automatic feed was continuing as it should be. It was not. It was discovered by the internal ops and compliance team, investigated, audited, and remedied by simply reinstating the feed and also setting up dual alerts so that if for whatever reason that feed does not occur on a given day, Penn's IT team will know it immediately and IGT's team should know it immediately, and that way we can investigate why that feed did not happen. On the second issue, the name matching logic, it was while the platform provider White Hat Gaming was coding a enhanced name matching logic to be more permissive in the sense that it would catch more, at the risk of possible false matches that could then be investigated. Penn implemented a manual process to screen enrollees in Barstool Sportsbook that caught people on the self-exclusion list while that coding was in process. That coding has been implemented, and as Mr. Crow noted, in total between the two, nine individuals were caught during a historical scrub that had registered and gamed during that period. So with that, we'll...
Nothing further. Thank you for your time, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners today. We appreciate it. We just want to reiterate our commitment to responsible gaming at Penn National across the land-based and the interactive properties.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board approve the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC, as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion is adopted. And thank you for self-reporting. That's very good. We appreciate that.
Of course.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a second consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Category 1 licensee Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC, doing business as Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse. This matter will be presented by Deputy Chief Enforcement Counsel Dustin Miller. Representatives for Hollywood Casino remain present. At this time, everyone's the same? Okay. At this time, I'll turn it over to Dustin.
Good afternoon, Chair Smiler, members of the board. Dustin Miller on behalf of the Office of Enforcement Counsel. This consent agreement involves an incident of underage gaming at Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse. On April 15th, 2021, 4 underage individuals entered Hollywood Casino through the valet entrance, and a security officer stopped them. As the security officer checked the fraudulent Ohio driver's license of a 17-year-old with the initials MB, an individual with the initials AZ, who was 19 years old, pushed a 16-year-old with the initials YW onto the gaming floor. Subsequently, YW walked around the gaming floor waiting for his friends. Meanwhile, despite MB's identification failing a verification check, the security officer allowed MB onto the gaming floor as well. A third underage individual with the initials SL showed a New Jersey identification to the security officer. The identification failed verification, and the security officer called for a supervisor. A senior security assistant shift manager and lead security officer responded and looked at SL's identification, which had all the features of a normal New Jersey driver's license. They asked SL questions regarding the identification, and he did not know the answers. As a result, security asked Pennsylvania State Police to check the identification, which came back as invalid. The initial security officer then disclosed that there was a third guest in that group that had gone onto the gaming floor and that he had left MB onto the gaming floor before calling for assistance. The security officer also advised that there was a smudge on MB's identification and that MB had answered questions on his identification correctly. Security notified surveillance and a review was conducted. The surveillance review revealed that after YW wandered the gaming floor for 19 minutes, he then sat down at a slot machine for several minutes. YW gamed at that slot machine with intermittent breaks over the course of 26 minutes. During this time, he put a total of $7 into the machine. He then walked out to the parking lot where he was later discovered by surveillance, and security responded to his location. YW was on the gaming floor for a total of 52 minutes. He did not consume alcohol while on the gaming floor. A review of the surveillance also revealed that after MB was allowed onto the gaming floor, he walked the gaming floor and then walked back to the valet entrance. Over the course of 8 minutes, he wandered back and forth in front of the security podium and between table game pits 2 and 3. He was on the gaming floor for a total of 21 minutes before a second security officer stopped him near the security podium and asked for his identification. The identification failed, and he was instructed to leave the gaming floor and wait with the other individuals that were in his group off the gaming floor. He did not game or consume alcohol while on the gaming floor. Underage gaming and allowing underage individuals on the gaming floor of a licensed facility are violations of the Pennsylvania Racehorse Development and Gaming Act and board regulations. Pennsylvania State Police met with all 4 underage individuals, and they were cited. With regard to the underage individuals who were on the gaming floor, MB was cited with summary carrying a false identification card, and YW was cited with summary underage gaming. All 4 underage individuals were initially issued 7-day evictions pending review. Hollywood Casino then extended the eviction until April 20th, 2026. In response to this incident, Hollywood Casino terminated the security officer who was stationed at the security podium. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel respectfully requests that the board approve the proposed consent agreement and stipulation of settlement, which requires that Hollywood Casino pay a civil penalty in the amount of $25,000 and a fee of $2,500 for costs incurred by the Office of Enforcement Counsel and other board staff involved in the investigation, assessment, and settlement of this matter.
Thank you. Hollywood, do you have any response?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Alex Vizda, HVIZDA, Director of Compliance for the Land-Based Properties in PA. We agree with the board's recitation of facts and the conditions of the settlement agreement. After this incident, we pre-shifted and reviewed with all of our security staff members the importance of using those technology resources and your supervisory staff resources that you have there and reporting that immediately rather than waiting as was the case here.
Any questions or comments from the board? Alex, you said you did do additional training for
yeah, so
security?
He had both the Veridocs, the technology resources there that didn't pass the Veridocs. That was hit number 1. He didn't report the person that got pushed onto the floor at the time that that person got pushed onto the floor, to the extent that we could have maybe prevented that person from being able to game. And then when he did ask the questions, sometimes what we'll do is say, well, can you sign your name to see if it matches what's on the ID. And it was basically the delay in using your supervisory staff resources that allowed these people to get onto the gaming floor.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC, as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Mr. Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Category 1 licensee PID LLC doing business as Presque Isle Downs and Casino. The matter will be presented by Senior Enforcement Counsel Michael Rowland. Representatives for Presque Isle Downs and Casino are present, and this time I would request that those individuals please introduce themselves for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Lou Frescogna. That's Frascogna. I'm Senior Counsel and Corporate Compliance Officer for Churchill Downs Incorporated. With me today is Austin Miller, Miller, Senior Vice President of Gaming Operations at Churchill Downs. To my left is Maureen Adams, ADAMS, Vice President of Gaming at Churchill Downs. And to her left is Matt Ennis, ENNIS, who is the Director of Finance and the Interim General Manager at Presque Isle Downs.
I would just ask at this time if any of your witnesses are non-attorneys that we just swear them in.
Please raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do. All right, Enforcement Counsel, you may proceed.
Afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Michael Rowland again with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter is a proposed consent agreement which involves procedure violations and the violation of health rules at PID LLC doing business as Presque Isle Downs and Casino. On October 5th, 2020, the Bureau of Casino Compliance was notified of a patron ejection due to the patron consuming alcohol on the gaming floor. The ejection was later overturned by Kevin O'Sullivan, who was Presque Isle's general manager at the time of the incident. At approximately 7:33 p.m., the patron, MD, was observed with a beer in his hand while located in the lower level of the Bourbon and Brew restaurant. MD proceeded to the gaming floor with his beverage. MD was observed periodically consuming the beverage while engaging in table games play on the gaming floor. At approximately 8:08, the security supervisor responded to Craps Table 13 and approached MD about having alcohol on the gaming floor. MD became very boisterous and animated and used threatening language. After MD refused to leave, the Pennsylvania State Police were requested for assistance. At approximately 8:09 p.m., MD called Presque Isle's general manager, Kevin O'Sullivan, to complain. PSP responded to the incident and attempted to de-escalate the situation. At approximately 8:28 p.m., MD received a phone call from General Manager Kevin O'Sullivan. Upon completion of the call, MD remained at Craps Table 13. MD remained at the facility, continued to wager, and continued to verbally berate Presque Isle staff. At approximately 8:59 p.m., an unknown male member of MD's party was observed approaching the Bourbon and Brew bar on the second floor of the casino. The male was observed speaking with the server. She was observed pouring 2 shots, gave them to the male patron, and then she walked away. At approximately 9:03, the male left money on the table and carried the shots towards the escalator area, attempting to conceal them. He was observed consuming one of the shots while going down the escalator to the gaming floor. Eventually, another unknown male was observed taking and consuming the shot at a gaming table. On July 16, 2020, to protect the public from the spread of COVID-19, the governor of Pennsylvania ordered that all bars were prohibited from conducting operations unless they offered sit-down, dine-in meals or take-out sales of alcoholic beverages. Alcohol could only be served for on-premises consumption when in the same transaction as a meal. All service was required to be at a table or booth, and bar service was prohibited. Therefore, on or about October 5th, 2020, Presque Isle was in violation of the governor's order regarding alcohol service. Patrons were observed consuming alcohol beverages on the Presque Isle Downs gaming floor. MD was first approached on the gaming floor regarding these violations at approximately 8:08 p.m. He was then permitted to remain at the facility and game for approximately 3 hours and cashed out at the cage at approximately 11:08 p.m. The Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board approve the consent agreement and the stipulation of settlement entered into between the parties. The terms of the settlement include that Presque Isle shall pay a civil penalty in the amount of $45,000 to the board within 5 days of the board's order approving this consent agreement. Also, within 5 days, Presque Isle shall pay to the board $2,500 for the costs incurred by OEC, BIE, and other related staff in connection with this matter. Further, Presque Isle shall immediately review policies and controls and provide training and guidance to its employees, which will minimize the opportunity for the occurrence of a similar incident in the future. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to take them at this time.
Presque Isle, do you have anything you'd like to say at this time?
Yes, Madam Chair. Well, immediately after this incident, back in October, the server who violated the protocols was subject to progressive discipline, and then additional read and sign memos were sent, one to all food and beverage employees reinforcing the COVID mandates, two to all food and beverage employees clarifying the reporting of suspicious activity, and then the entire security department was required to participate in training, which was called Dealing with Angry People. Furthermore, in early 2021, the food and beverage and security teams participated in alcohol service training and received additional impaired guest training information dealing with best practices. And something we continue to refine and improve is an exclusion policy which deals with major incidences such as this and how to handle them. One of those items is obviously that no exclusion should be overruled by someone not on the property. It seems self-evident, but that's, we're putting that in the policy now. Additionally, since that time, there's been a change in leadership at Presque Isle Downs. We are not quite ready to announce who will be the next general manager at the property, but I can assure you that during this search, that at the forefront was compliance and creating the right culture at Presque Isle Downs, and part of that culture is supporting frontline team members and making sure that they feel supported and doing the right thing. Obviously, as detailed by Office of Enforcement Counsel, verbally berating an employee after that person has even been, asked to leave once and that had been overruled, but even the first time verbally berating an employee is not acceptable. So that is the kind of right culture we're talking about moving forward. And hopefully we can make that announcement in short order. On behalf of Presque Isle and as representatives of the ultimate parent company, Churchill Downs Incorporated, we agree with the Office of Enforcement Counsel's recitation of the facts and would ask that you approve the consent agreement between Presque Isle Downs and the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Any questions or comments from the board? I would just like to say I remember this was before us previously, and the then general manager did testify, and it was not satisfactory to us, what the testimony that was presented to us. And so I'm glad that you've taken additional steps to address the situation, because I'm sure your employees felt like they were being totally demeaned and undermined by the supervisory staff overruling their decision to eject this person from the premises. So I'm glad you took those additional steps. So hearing no other questions or comments, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and PID LLC doing business as Presque Isle Downs and Casino as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next three matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed complaints seeking the revocation of one gaming employee occupation permit and the suspension of two gaming employee occupation permits issued by the board. The complaints have been filed with the board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in each complaint. The individual named in each complaint failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each respondent. Therefore, the facts in each complaint are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each matter, we will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action.
Madam Chair, members of the board, the next matter is a request to revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Justin Chauffier. Mr. Chauffier applied to work as an iGaming support specialist at Parks Casino. His application was approved by the board and he was hired, but he never began employment with Parks. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement was notified that Mr. Chauffier was arrested by the Upper Marion Township Police Department and criminally charged with aggravated indecent assault without consent, aggravated indecent assault by forcible compulsion, indecent assault without consent of another, indecent assault by forcible compulsion, theft by unlawful taking, and receiving stolen property. Mr. Chauffier was found guilty of aggravated indecent assault without consent and indecent assault without consent of another. He was sentenced to 3.5 to 7 years confinement, and Mr. Chauffier is not currently employed at any Pennsylvania licensed facility. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Justin Chauffier.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the revocation of Justin Chauffier's gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Good afternoon, Thomas Monan, M-O-N-A-G-H-A-N, with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Diana Paul. Ms. Paul was previously employed as a PBX operator at Rivers, Pittsburgh. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement was notified that Ms. Paul was arrested and charged with forgery, identity theft, and access device fraud. These charges remain pending. Ms. Paul is not currently employed in the Pennsylvania gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board suspend the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Diana Paul.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the suspensions of Diana Paul gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Nicholas Rush. Mr. Rush was previously employed as an entrance control officer at Rivers, Pittsburgh. Bureau of Investigations Enforcement was notified that Mr. Rush was arrested and charged with a felony carrying a firearm without a license. That charge remains pending. Mr. Rush is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board suspend the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Nicholas Rush.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board approve the suspension of Nicholas Rush's gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The remaining matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed petitions seeking the involuntary exclusion of individuals whose presence in a licensed facility are inimical to the interests of the Commonwealth and are licensed gaming therein. In each instance, the petition for exclusion has been filed with the Board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in the petition. The individual named in each petition failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each individual. Therefore, all facts in each petition are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each instance, if the board orders a proposed exclusion, each individual's photo, personal identifiers, and a summary of the inimical conduct will be placed on the board's public website. Once again, in each matter, we will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action.
Thomas Monan, once again with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Robert Burks on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Burks robbed a patron at gunpoint in the bathroom at Rivers, Philadelphia, and Mr. Burks was criminally charged and permanently evicted from Rivers, Philadelphia for his actions. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests the board place Robert Burks on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board approve the addition of Robert Burks to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the placement of Adonis Melvins Jr. on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Melvins left his 2 children, ages 7 and 8, unattended in his vehicle in the parking garage at Rivers, Philadelphia, for approximately 19 minutes before their children were discovered by surveillance and security was alerted. Mr. Melvins was placing wagers at a sportsbook kiosk inside the casino at that time. Philadelphia Police Department was notified and Mr. Melvins was criminally charged. Those charges are currently pending. Mr. Melvins was also permanently evicted from Rivers, Philadelphia. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Adonis Melvins Jr. on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? I think Rivers, Philadelphia could probably take a few lessons from Valley Forge.
This was before they put their changes into effect also.
Okay, thank you. Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board approve the addition of Adonis Melvins Jr. to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
John Crowe, CROHE, for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Laura Juarez on the involuntary exclusion list. Laura Juarez aided in the robbery of a Rivers, Philadelphia patron whose purse, which contained approximately $50, assorted identification cards, and a bank card, was stolen while the patron was in the Rivers, Philadelphia parking lot. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requests that the board place Laura Juarez on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the addition of Laura Juarez to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Christopher Naim on the involuntary exclusion list. Christopher Naim gamed at 2 table games at Parks Casino and then left the facility. Then, while in the parking lot of Parks, began attempting to enter vehicles of other individuals throughout multiple sections of the Parks parking lot and was able to enter the vehicle of another patron. He was observed by Park surveillance who alerted the authorities. Mr. Naim was criminally charged by the Bensalem Police Department with the misdemeanor theft from a motor vehicle, receiving stolen property, and 2 counts of possession of a controlled substance. These charges remain pending. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Christopher Naim on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the addition of Christopher Naim to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place John Ricketts on the involuntary exclusion list. While on the gaming floor at Harris, Philadelphia, John Ricketts pulled up the corner lid of a float at a baccarat table and stole $955 in gaming checks, then cashed out $150 worth of the stolen checks before exiting the facility. He was later charged with theft by Pennsylvania State Police and pled guilty to a lesser charge. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place John Ricketts on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the addition of John Ricketts to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
The final matter for the board's consideration is a petition to place Gervais Shackelford on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Shackelford left his 6-year-old son unattended in his vehicle, which was parked alongside a public street near Rivers Pittsburgh Casino for approximately 20 minutes while he placed sports wagers at a kiosk inside Rivers Pittsburgh Casino. City of Pittsburgh police were contacted and responded to the casino, but declined to file charges in this matter. Mr. Shackelford was banned from Rivers Pittsburgh for his actions. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requests that the board place Gervais Shackelford on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, can I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustio moves that the board approve the addition of Gervais Shackelford to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Thank you. That concludes our business.
Thank you. That concludes today's agenda. So the next public meeting of the board will be held on Wednesday, December 15th, 2021 at 10 a.m. at this location. And before we move to adjourn, I want to thank everybody for their patience today and also remind everybody that tomorrow is Veterans Day, so please take some time tomorrow to remember all of the men and women who have served in our armed forces and thank them for their service. Now may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Commissioner Regan moves to adjourn.
Commissioner Mustio seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.